Thank you. All right. Well, happy Tuesday, December 6th to everyone. This is the City of Iowa City Work Session, and it is just 4 p.m. I want to make sure that Councilor Pauline Taylor is connected.
Not yet. We're working on it.
Okay. All right. She's going to be joining us by Zoom today. And I'm going to add that this is the first meeting since I've been on council in 2018 that she's ever missed. So-
I think she told me, I think it's the first meeting that she's
Missed.
ever, not, well, I mean, obviously, we were all on
She's
Zoom
still
for a
here,
while.
though.
Yes,
Yeah.
she's still here.
Still present. Still present. So,
Yep.
all right, we're going to get right into the agenda, and we'll start with an overview of available crisis suicide services. And I'm going to introduce from Community Crisis Services, Sarah Nelson, the Executive Director. So please welcome.
Thank you. What do I do here to get to my slide? There it is.
Oh, great.
Okay, so I just wanted to address council. This time of year is a bit challenging, and we're going into the winter months with seasonal depression and things that are really challenging. Plus, we're experiencing a lot of struggle with the youth in our community, so I want to make sure everyone's aware of what's available and the different kind of points of intervention of crisis services that are available in Iowa City. As you know, we've had a rough couple of weeks, and so we're keeping a really close eye on the trends and what the gaps are and how we can continue to meet those. We've seen an increase in mobile crisis calls. We're seeing an increase in a response for mobile crisis to schools, as well as an increase in chat and text. So everything is being heavily utilized right now. So the first resource I want to make sure everybody's aware of is 988 Suicide Crisis and Lifeline. The most important thing, because it's newer to some folks, is that you can text or call 988 24/7. And that texting is a really good resource for youth or folks that are not sure about talking to someone on the phone and feel like there's a little bit more anonymity. And there's also the 988lifeline.org/chat, which can be accessed through the computer. Those 99% of contacts to 988 right now are being answered by one of two Iowa centers, with Community being one of those. And then Community backs Iowa up because we have a national contract. So if you chat or text 988, you're 99.9% of the time going to get a community crisis counselor due to that. I also wanted to point out the University of Iowa Support and Crisis Line that's also answered by community counselors. This is available for University of Iowa students, faculty, parents frequently will contact it when they're concerned about their students. And that can also be, you can text or call 844-461-5420. And I kind of think about this as a continuum in terms of, level of intervention. We're starting with crisis phone, chat, and text, and then mobile crisis being kind of that next level intervention if somebody needs a little bit more support. Mobile crisis, you call 1-855-581-8111 and ask for mobile crisis dispatch. They will dispatch anywhere in the community 24/7. The important thing that I think for people to know about mobile crisis response and what I constantly like to message is that it is available to everyone in the community, regardless of your socioeconomic status, your insurance status. I think this is particularly important because, it doesn't matter if you have a gold standard insurance, there's no service that's going to come in 60 minutes or less if you're experiencing a crisis or your child's experiencing a crisis to your home. So I think that's a common misconception that this isn't something available to everyone, and it is, and we want people to use it when they need help. The other important thing about mobile crisis is there's no time limitation on the intervention. So counselors come out. If that ends up needing to take 2 hours to resolve that crisis and de-escalate it and make sure people are feeling the support that they need, counselors will be there for 2 hours. If it takes longer, it takes longer. And we have a really great follow-up process in terms of we'll call back 24 hours after the call and stay in touch with that individual or family to make sure they're getting connected. I always like to point that out because I think that's a really important piece of mobile crisis, is that it's kind of that portal to make sure that they're getting that follow-up and that continued connection. And then GuideLink Access Center, I would say, is, when the crisis can't be addressed by 988 phone, chat, or text or mobile crisis, then GuideLink would be kind of the next step in that intervention, offering triage crisis counseling, crisis observation, crisis stabilization beds, medical detox, and sobering. And mobile crisis or GuideLink can assess for crisis stabilization beds at GuideLink, which are 3 to 5 day stay. And then lastly, I wanted to talk about the Coping with Suicide Loss Support Group, which is run in partnership with community by a couple survivors of loss, and they meet the first Thursday of each month at GuideLink Center from 7 to 8:30. So I want to make sure that people that are coping with that realize that that support group is available in our community. So does council have any questions about any of those services?
I'm just curious. I think it's what you were describing in terms of having someone, a counselor, be able to come out to help during a crisis is amazing, and that follow-up piece as well. You said it's 24 hours, or are there situations where, I guess my question is, does a counselor feel like a situation once they come to resolution that then 24 hours is...
That follow-up
makes sense. Yeah,
So the
as
first-
opposed to like saying, you know what, I think you're good. I think you're in a better place, but I'm going to call you in 4 hours. Right? Is that
That does
an option?
happen.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And
That's-
that'll even happen off of 988 phone, chat, and text too. If we, wrap up with the safety plan and support, we might ask based on our assessment, would you like a call back in 4 hours? So that's always an option with any of those services, and counselors are pretty good at gauging, should we see if they need that check-in. And the other thing that's important about mobile crisis is, crisis does not happen in a vacuum and for a short period of time, right? And so there might be families or individuals that are experiencing a fairly acute level of crisis that lasts a few months. And so, we will go out repeatedly as is needed, and that's not unusual for us to do so. So sometimes it's a one and done and we just do follow-up. Sometimes mobile crisis will go out multiple times on the same individual or family in a short period of time to help support them.
Do you have a sense of the I'm here.
Thank you. Where's the voice in the sky coming from? With the masks, I was struggling.
Do you have a sense of the geographic distribution of these calls, where they're coming from?
Yes. So I don't have the data in front of me, and I plan to bring you a deeper dive into data in January to kind of show you what we're seeing. I can tell you for mobile crisis, over 60% originate in Iowa City specifically. So it's very heavy utilization. The call, chat, and text breakdown is because we answer for the whole state. I don't even want to try to ballpark that without having the data in front of me.
Do we know within Iowa City where the calls are emanating from?
We only know by county. So for
Okay.
988 Lifeline, we just get a breakdown. So I know we answered 62% of the calls that originated in Johnson County in the month of October. And Lifeline kind of holds that data, and we get what they give us. We're not able to run reports outside of what they provide to us, except for our internal queues. So there's some limitations, but they're trying to improve upon that so that we can pinpoint that a little bit more.
Thank you.
Sarah, I know that mobile crisis has ramped up quite a bit in a short period of time, and you mentioned a 60-minute response, and which is, I think, great for the level of service that is being provided. And I also know in the recent funding that we approved, you were looking at a much shorter response. Can you just kind of speak to where you are in improving those services as far as that response time?
So within the city of Iowa City, the average response time is 24 minutes. So it's our goal is 15, just for total transparency. That's what we would like to see within the city of Iowa City. And I think we'll get there in the next 6 months. The volume of school calls is significantly greater than what it was last year, which is wonderful. It's what we want. We want them to be calling mobile crisis, and that's the volume during the day has been pretty intense. So we're adding another youth-focused mobile crisis counselor to support our coordinator because of that volume, and that's going to help out too. So we're hoping to see that drop from the 24 to the 15 minutes, or at least close in that area.
Wonderful, thank you.
Sarah, do you want to speak at all to the future, sort of what you're looking toward, or do you want to hold that until January?
I mean, I can give broadly what we're hoping, especially in light of 988. So one of the things that was the most exciting about 988 coming to fruition is that it's a truly transformative opportunity for crisis services. It's never happened before, and it provides an access point that just hasn't existed for people to easily remember, to access via phone, chat, or text. And so we're going to see the state has funding to start a statewide campaign for 988 because there's been no marketing outside of media up until this point. So there'll be a formal statewide campaign. Then Vibrant will be doing their formal national campaign in the beginning of 2023. And at the same time, we're looking at piloting 911 to 988 diversion projects. So the state is going to pick 3 different counties where we are going to pilot, and the Lifeline centers will work with the PSAPs to train them in what's an appropriate call to divert directly to 988, which then will probably divert to mobile crisis more frequently than not. So right now, 98% of call, chat, and text can de-escalate the crisis without in-person contact. But we know when we look at 911 to 988 diversion, we're going to see a significant number of mobile crisis calls, because when someone calls 911, they're expecting and need a response. And so while that response might not be law enforcement because it's going to be off of 988, they're going to need to see mobile crisis response more frequently because of the acuity of the caller. So there's a lot of system stuff, being done to make sure that there's preparation for that. We also take it really seriously that we don't want to miss any calls. So if we're diverting from 911 to 988, we absolutely have to have the capacity to answer those calls 100% of the time and very quickly. So that's a big change as well. And then the hope is that 988 will eventually be able to do centralized dispatch of all mobile crisis teams throughout the state and connect to the local mental health access centers and crisis stabilization beds and all of the crisis resources, so that it's really client-centered and not as fragmented as it currently is. And we're lucky because one of the 988 centers is in Iowa City, and so naturally those counselors have a really good familiarity with our crisis services.
Thank you.
You had mentioned the big uptick in need this fall. Is that mostly because, what's your sense? Is that because it's easier to access now through things like 988, or is there actually more to be, more just need in general? Do you have a sense of that at all?
Yeah, I think that we're definitely seeing fallout from the pandemic, from economic uncertainty, inflation. All of these stressors are things that are increasing the risk for suicide and jeopardizing people's mental health. And so we're seeing that. We're seeing it in the community. We're seeing youth struggling more after they haven't been in school for a couple years. It's apparent that everybody is still struggling in the numbers that we're seeing locally, nationally.
Thank you.
Well, really appreciate you coming and sharing kind of a quick synopsis of what's happening, and to really share some resources with those during the holiday season. I think it's a critical time for a lot of individuals, and this will be helpful. One question I would have for you, maybe when you come back to us, because these are some relatively new services, how is the word being spread, as the school district a part of that. Of course, the University of Iowa, they just kind of launched their new service, I think, within the past year, and how do they anticipate that word is spreading throughout the student body as well as their faculty. And then elderly. We know that there are advocates like Bob Welsh out there that work with elderly people, and we have the Senior Center. Just wanted to know if there are avenues where the word can be spread a little more on these services.
I think, messaging is going to be really important in the next few months, and continuing to step up our messaging game and ways that we can partner to get the word out. The recent putting 988 on the law enforcement cars, and some of the conversation around maybe putting that on city buses, and really thinking about how can we get that messaging out and do it in a way that lets people know it's for everyone. I think you're absolutely right around special populations in terms of, texting 988 isn't going to be great for certain populations. So how do we make sure that they're getting the message if they need that support? And so doing some outreach and work with aging services would be a really good idea, and something we haven't, intentionally done yet. I can tell you the school district, because it's very cool, this year on the back of all of their student IDs put a heart QR code. And when you scan that, it takes you to an Iowa City School District support page, and it has the 988 information and mobile crisis and UAY and lots of other resources. And so they had that ready to go at the beginning of the school year, which was really, really cool. So
Awesome. Thank you again for
Thank
coming.
you.
Yes. All right. We're going to ask Kelly, our city clerk, to connect Councilor Pauline Taylor. So we'll give her a little time to do that. While she's preparing, we'll ask USG to get ready to come forth.
Hello.
Councilor Taylor, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
We can. There will be a little delay, so just know that if you're wanting to jump in and speak, I may not catch it in time, in real time.
Okay. Thanks. I'll try.
Great. All right. Well, at this time, we're going to welcome updates from USG on their 2022 through 2023 Renter's Guide.
We are having a little bit of trouble making sure that everything is viewable on the screen. It looks like the slides were cut off.
Okay, so I am not IT, and you are not in good hands right now. And Councilor Taylor, I'll ask that if there's a way that you can mute when you're not speaking.
I'll try, Mayor. I'm not on Zoom. I'm just on the phone.
Oh, sure. Okay, thank you.
But I'll turn my TV down.
All right.
It's a village, so. Well, and council should have also received copies of the presentation. If y'all have that, if there's anything cut off, okay.
That's working.
Yeah, definitely. Perfect.
Thank you.
Great. All right.
That's probably better. All right. Hi, Council. So Ellie, Noah, and I today will be presenting the Renter's Guide 2022 to 2023. So it's an important tool for informing student renters to make educated housing and renting decisions. And then we shared the Renter's Guide through a variety of mediums, including our social media, email notifications, university newsletter, and the Renters Fair and other events such as those.
To begin our discussion, I think it's important that we kind of talk about the methods that we use to gather this data, as well as some of the general results, demographics-wise, of who we were able to actually reach out to. So we predominantly sent this out through social media via our own posts and stories, but also utilizing student government and then encouraging relevant student orgs to also share this. We also sent it out into mass emails on 2 different occasions. That allowed us to garner the most amount of results thus far, with nearly 650 respondents, and we were only able to use about 500. That was due to levels of completion, as well as other factors, because some people might have logged into it and then wrote their name and then didn't do anything else, so we couldn't use that, sadly. But the results that we were able to use allowed us, ended up becoming 70% undergraduate, 30% graduate, and then predominantly people using she, her pronouns had completed the profiles. So I think that that's interesting because it means that women in Iowa City were most likely to be advocates and self-advocates for their housing, which I think is pretty cool. Additionally, about 40% of the respondents also identified as non-traditional students in various forms of way, as you can see listed. And then finally, to be included in the guide, landlords needed to have, in guide representations, landlords needed to have 10 or more respondents. We did, however, in the full guide note all the different other landlords that were options. I think it was about 15 others that couldn't be included.
Awesome. So next up we have, this is the average rent across Iowa City itself. The average rent comes around $652.08, and the maximum average rent was $200 more than their average student income. And so this is taking into effect that you get $11 per hour with a max of 20 hours for the university. The highest rental companies, as you can see, is Rise at Riverfront Crossing, Aspire at West Campus, and Rentals IC. Possible causes to the housing issues include inflation and rising rental prices across the town. 30% of respondents said that they were paying over 50% of their income on rent, which is a huge burden on students already having to pay for schooling as well as daily expenses.
All right. Repairs and cooperation. Many respondents experienced cheap fixes to problems in their rental property, which would then result in partial to no return of their security deposit. Common predatory actions occurred, such as unspecified utility fees, having to pay unnecessary fixes to apartments, and being charged with high cleaning prices. Iowa Housing Code 562A.15 maintains the right of a safe and sanitary living environment, whereas a tenant can experience their unit to have can expect their unit to have an unnecessary repairs and keep the common area of the property clean.
So, as we can see with results from repairs and consideration, it's important that in order to maintain the culture and the health of the college town, it's important to, this is highly dependent on the physical environment, of course. So we also wanted to assess how capable tenants were to be contacting their landlords, and from their experience, were they receiving contact back? Most people were not aware of how to contact their landlord, but most people that were able to or knew how to contact their landlord found that the modes that they were given were accessible. So I would imagine portals and things like that, maybe text. That's what I used to do with my landlord. Those were usually responsive, and at the same time, they also felt that their landlords were being professional. However, our data does show that the newer units experience the least cooperative landlords. And in contrast, apartments in Iowa City had the highest landlord cooperation. We will be changing some of these questions next year to be more kind of like straightforward too, because there could be skews in the data based on the like questioning and stuff like that. But yeah.
So for sustainability, the average person had access to some form of recycling at their rental property, but it was not large enough, or nor did they know about the size. So people often just aren't paying attention to the size of like their rental. I mean, not their rental recycling dumpster or anything like that. And data on this one is also very inconclusive, as the system is ranked from 0, 1, and 2, being that 0 is I don't, or 1, 2, and 3. Sorry. That 3 is I don't know, and 1 is yes. So if you don't know and yes, it gets a very inconclusive answer. So we will be also changing this for the next rental guide.
All right. So some main takeaways. Respondents were able to provide quotes on the management and condition of their experience renting. A vast majority of comments focus on the ideas surrounding unaffordable housing, inadequate living conditions, and lack of proper management. One such quote is, "We moved in with no sink, no Wi-Fi for 2 months, and the microwave didn't work, and it could have caused a fire, and it took 3 months to fix." Another such quote is, "Landlords admitted this was his worst apartment and would be making needed repairs before move-in. Carpets had burn marks and was gross. Cabinets smell of mold, and there are holes in the walls in a few cabinets. We were not informed that the building was infested with bugs prior to move-in." All right. And then, continuing forward, we'd like to partner with the city to establish friendly renting initiatives, starting with addressing the lease gap housing crisis, which affects a wide variety of Iowa City residents, students, or otherwise. We recommend the city take a concerted effort in providing and sharing information on lease gap housing and reading leases to determine lease gaps. We are working on passing the renter's checklist in the state legislature, and we would like to see similar policy passed in the Iowa City area. We would also like to advocate for half-year leases for students. And going forward, in next year's renter's guide, we are planning to add a couple questions regarding radon testing and pest control in one or more unit buildings. Thank you for your time.
If council has any questions, we would also be willing to, and it takes a little bit of time to answer that.
I'm not familiar with the 6-month lease piece. What's the argument for that?
Yeah. So from my conversations with landlords and some lawyers that have been like following this issue for a while, they found that 6-month leases could allow for some reduction of the pressure in August for landlords to have all the cleaning done within like a 2-week period. This would help reduce like possible lease gaps, as well as for short-term residents, especially with the transient student population. It could be very helpful for people maybe who are graduating a semester early or otherwise are coming back later. Other college towns, like in like Charlotte, North Carolina, they have these kind of options, and it's been found to be pretty effective and helpful for dealing with that.
Thank you.
Any others?
I think the University of Iowa had some dorms available to students this past fall when the transition happened. Was USG able to kind of get that word out to individuals? And do you know if all of those units were occupied?
Yes, and more so. So we were the main organizers for that, and we were mostly working through the IMU House Hotel. It was originally planned to be in dorms, but then it was moved to the House Hotel. Our initial plan was to subsidize about like 15 rooms, but then over 30 were utilized. And then we also provided 100 free parking spots at Hampshire Auditorium. And we had sent out an exit survey as well to try to gather data, especially for the people that were using those house hotel rooms. But we had so few respondents that it was kind of inconclusive. But the need was there, especially, and it was very nice of the IMU to allow for even more of those subsidies for all of those people that were using it. I believe with the renovations to the IMU in the following years, they're going to be working with us possibly different like hotels and stuff like that in the Iowa City area, since they won't be providing a house hotel.
And it won't be a football weekend.
Say that again?
It won't be a football weekend in
Definitely.
August. So.
You may have covered this, but I was curious. This is incredible aggregate information, and I was wondering if of those landlords or property management places that have been included, if you have or plan to reach out to have conversations with them, essentially to do the same type of thing that you're doing with us, to share out and say, for better, for worse, here's how you did, so that, if nothing else, they can understand the perception, let alone probably something that they know well about the realities of how they're doing. But in particular, like I'm struck by how available and easy is it to have that communication, among other things like a missing microwave and burned floors. So anyway, I just wondered if there were plans to, or if you already have thought about sharing out this information and this data with the landlords who are represented here.
So we don't have any formal plans to talk to landlords. Usually we reside over like the student aspect. So we usually talk to our student legal services. We also provide information to other students. But we did see a kind of need during that in the renters fair. We actually had a few landlord companies come up to us and want a copy of the renter's guide to reflect on that. So we could definitely explore that going forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's not to put the burden on you, since I know, like you say, your focus was to say this is to be able to help renters. But it seems to me that there could be something here to help landlords understand better where the problems are and how they're being perceived and how that might be impacting their ability to rent to people. So thank you.
I really like to commend you all on your initiative on this. I know it sort of started with let's figure out how if we can't deal with the gap in housing, and when you delved into that, you found that there were a whole host of issues, and it was much more complex than anyone had imagined. But that you then went the extra mile and put out this survey and aggregated the data that you can present to us, and you can also probably talk to UNI and ISU, and then use the legislature is really outstanding. That's very helpful.
Yeah, we have been, so UNI is looking at trying to replicate this kind of survey to their area. So that's awesome.
I love the 6-month lease now that I hear about it. I mean, it's such a large market. It makes so much sense to offer a couple of options with the lease.
Yeah, I'm sure that there would be some like logistical concerns by landlords for how they would delegate kind of units, and that would be also interesting for how city can cooperate, maybe affordability, like more affordable units to like the buildings and things like that, and the 6-month leases. But that's obviously another conversation. But yeah, it seems like it could have a lot of potential here for sure.
Well, we're certainly looking forward to the council and USG's time together early next year. And always good to see you, Ellie. And I don't know if you all are prepared to give your update at this moment, but if you are,
Yes, we are.
you can do it at this time.
But- Right, I'll close out this real quick.
Hi, Council, again, of course. So our first announcement is that the renter's checklist is getting well on its way. Undergraduate student government is beginning the process to pass the tenant checklist legislation through the Iowa legislator. This will be happening, of course, next year when we head up there. We've already begun the process of reaching out to state legislators, and we're pretty optimistic, so we're hoping it goes through.
And then the university has seen fast and record growth in Hispanic and Latinx students on campus. And the percentage of Hispanic students enrolled in university has grown from 6.6% in 2020 to 7.1% in 2022. And as a member of the Hispanic community, this points to a more inclusive university environment, and we are welcoming diversity on campus. And then just a quick announcement. We sent out an email a couple weeks ago to schedule a meeting with council, and we would love to get to know your goals and share ours as well. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. And I know we'll look at calendar dates before our time is over today, hopefully. All right. We are going to move on with the next agenda item, and thanks again to USG, to the Quarterly American Rescue Plan Act update. And I'm going to welcome you at this time.
Good evening. Cassandra Grip, Grants Manager with NDS. The U.S. Treasury allocated $18.3 million to the City of Iowa City in the American Rescue Plan Act funds. To date, we have allocated approximately $4.8 million of those funds. This is just a breakdown of where those funds have gone. The direct payments to eligible adults program that we partnered with Johnson County on has wrapped up. That is completed. The amount funded was approximately $1.18 million. In total, the City of Iowa City funded 791 direct payments to eligible adults. Eviction prevention, the proposed program is under review by city staff currently with Shelter House. We're pursuing potential partnership opportunities as well. Forest View relocation, amount funded there is approximately $1.2 million. All tenants have until December 9th to vacate the property and be eligible for their second payment. All tenants have received their first. At last report, we had 20 households that had received only their first check, which sounds concerning, but we do have plans for 17 of those. The Center for Worker Justice is working with the other 3 households as well to try and come up with a plan here to vacate the property. Emergency nonprofit assistance, the amount funded there was $485,000. Those applications and agreements are in progress now. They are being reviewed. The programs are getting started, and reports will be due here soon, and we'll report back quarterly on updates there. That does include the Wage Theft Initiative as well with the Center for Worker Justice, which was applied for separately from that process. BIPOC Business Support Framework and Infrastructure is in development. City staff will prepare a framework for council consideration. Social Services Capital Funding Program. That is on the agenda tonight, I believe, here a little bit later. And we will proceed based on council feedback. Mental health services, the mobile crisis outreach, you heard an update from today. That is ongoing and continues. Workforce development and childcare. There will be an item on the council meeting today for the University of Iowa Labor Center for your consideration. And the 4Cs childcare initiative is also in the process of getting under that agreement and beginning that work as well. Small business, arts and culture, and tourism investments. On the June 6th meeting, council funded to Think Iowa City the $250,000. That program is underway. They have awarded 4 projects to date, and we will continue to update at quarterly meetings. The utility assistance program for under revenue replacement, council approved that and that has gone through as well. So those were all brought to zero, and utility billing protocols pre-pandemic have been resumed. Final note, staff would just encourage that council maintain revenue replacement as a viable option, as it might provide additional flexibility for these funds in the future too. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Just a overall question, Cassie. If those that are kind of in development, or there was a note on the resiliency one that maybe that would be local dollars rather than ARPA, given all these other buckets that we have in ARPA. Is there any prioritization for those that are the sort of in development? I realize we may not have a timeline for when we can expect to see some of these frameworks or further things, but.
Yeah, I can assist with that one. And it feeds well into a point that I wanted to make as part of your discussion here. So if you're looking at the memo that Cassie provided you, it's page 8 of your work session pack of your IP on December 1st. You'll see that the second column is the 2021 estimated range. And that's when we did the public input. We said, here's a rough range of where each individual program could be. And we did that for a couple reasons. One, we didn't have specific implementation plans for each of these items. But two, we also didn't know where we could partner and possibly leverage other funds. But what's important for you to know is if you were to total up that left-hand side, basically the smaller dollar amounts of that range, that's going to equal 18 million. That's essentially our full allocation. And so, Councilor Burgess, what you're alluding to is a note in the memo that states the one that we haven't started, which is the climate resiliency and hazard assessment. We're kind of holding that as the final one, because if we end up spending a little bit more in these other categories, we're going to have to spend less somewhere. And since we haven't started that one, we're just holding that for the time being. In terms of larger priorities, as you know, we have the capital grant program framework in front of you tonight, and we hope to get any changes that you'd like to see made to that so that we can get that application or issue that request for statements of interest still yet this week. From there, we'll move on to the largest category of spending we have, which is the BIPOC Business Support Framework. So again, we would come to you with a process and ask that you endorse that process. Looking to do that in early 2023. And in that same kind of early 2023 timeframe, have some discussions with you about that affordable housing piece. Those are the three big categories that are going to drive our ability or inability to do more in some of those smaller categories towards the end of that table. But again, in kind of order as we see it now, and you of course can redirect us, the social service capital, the BIPOC business support, and then the affordable housing piece would be the way that staff would recommend we approach these.
Are there other funding sources besides ARPA that we could expect some of these larger, more transformative things? For example, in that resiliency and climate section, is there anything like in the Inflation Reduction Act or infrastructure bills?
Very well could be. Our intention with this was more on the study front, so that 500 to 3 million was at the low end, just conducting that analysis and helping inform future infrastructure decisions and land use decisions was the broader idea, right? Trying to project out climate trends and impacts that would have on our city and our infrastructure, and just helping us make more informed decisions going forward. As you got to that 3 million side, those were funds that, hey, maybe we can move forward with one or two infrastructure projects that study identified. We can certainly utilize local funds for that study portion, but the emergency levy that is funding our climate activities isn't really robust enough to fund major infrastructure projects. That would have to be done in the context of the capital improvement plan.
I'm actually happy to hear you say this because I know that our deputy city manager, Revin, and I and Wendy Ford, we're going to be having a meeting about infrastructure with someone that is going to listen to and kind of share what opportunities might be for our city. And so this is just something that I think, can naturally come up in that conversation.
Where do the discussions stand for and it's referenced in the workforce development and childcare portion, for the additional childcare piece, the one working with business and with the county and so forth and with the community foundation?
Yeah, so there's
potentially
a wage supplement program that's been talked about here. We've been involved in those discussions. In kind of a big picture view, it's an opportunity to boost the wages of child care workers without passing those costs along to the parents. That's the whole goal. The county has been taking a lead on surveying local child care providers to try to kind of understand the amount of funding that would be needed to successfully carry out the program. So we're kind of waiting for those results to be tallied and the program to be designed. And then I'd anticipate coming to the council with a contribution. And what we've talked about is matching the county's ARPA contribution, which is, going off memory here, I think $750,000, which would round out that workforce development category for us.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you so much.
Pauline's on
I
Zoom
am,
now.
all right. Yes, Counselor Taylor. And you're on mute.
Bart.
Yeah, there you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, good. Sorry about that. All these technical things. I just wanted to make a comment for Cassie and thank her for her report, because I know initially when we heard, $18 million, it sounded like so much money, but there's just a lot of need out there, and I just want to say I'm comfortable with the way funds have been being used, and thank you, Cassie, for keeping an eye on that.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you. All right.
Thanks.
Yes. All right. We are going to move right along in our agenda. Clarification of agenda items. Is this for our formal agenda? Hearing none. We're going to move on to our information packets. We actually had 3. So we'll start with November 17th. We'll move on to November 23rd, and there are a few items here that will need council direction for. And we'll start with 1123 IP5, and this is a memo from the Community Police Review Board, a proposed amendment to Ordinance 88 requested by the Iowa City Community Police Review Board. So we'll ask our city attorney.
Sure. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So again, a quick reminder, the CPRB has their own attorney who works with them and staffs their meetings and so forth. So I'm just the messenger passing on what they've requested. Here they've proposed an ordinance amendment speaking about the personal knowledge that is required in order to be a complainant for a complaint to be brought to the board. And they want to basically rule out people who just saw a video on YouTube, or if someone texted them a video, or they saw it in somewhere on social media. They want to clarify, no, we want someone who actually has personal knowledge, who was actually there to observe the item and so forth. And so that was a request that the CPRB is bringing to you. So at this point, what we're looking for is your guidance on this, if that's something that makes sense to you. and you wish to go ahead and advance the CPRB's request here, our office will write up the ordinance amendment and bring it to you probably at your first meeting in January. If you would like to see something different, I'm all ears, and we can pass that on.
I have no concerns with it. I read it, and it makes total sense to me that it's someone that, third hand got this through a video would want to be the complainant. So, yeah.
I mean, I think that that this is what they want has sort of been the assumption all along, but they want to make sure that it's actually explicit in the ordinance, so it makes sense to me as well.
And I certainly appreciate, especially in this day and age where there's more opportunity to see, unfortunately, really troubling events. But I think context is everything, and so it is important that no matter how well-intended someone who might have seen it and said, oh my God, you should see this, that it really needs to be someone who has witnessed it firsthand to allow the best work to move forward. So I think that this makes a lot of sense in the language.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. I
We'll draft it up.
Great.
We're all good.
All right. We're going to move on to IP6, and this is a memo from our city manager on the nonprofit capacity building capital grant program.
Is this the same? Is this
It's-
November 23?
Actually,
You're doing it within the...
I am sorry. We're going to continue November 23rd. So any other items from November 23rd before we jump into 12-1 info packet?
I wanted to give Councilor Thomas and Taylor a chance to talk about the listening post, but in absence of that, although I'll jump in, I just wanted to say thank you. And also, I thought the recommendations that came out of it to have the neighborhood coordinator there to help with facilitating and translating is a great one moving forward. So I just appreciate that you both went out and had that conversation. And
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting, and I really did a quick summary in these bullet points because the list of issues that came up on the concerns among the residents was quite long. But it sort of reminded me of the issues we heard from the students as well. There's a lot of rental lease concerns that come up in our community. But yes, it was, I think we both thought, a very productive event, and it was great having Iman there. So I do think in terms of the format that would be a useful addition as part of that. And so yeah, it was very gratifying, and the residents really appreciated our being there.
Mayor,
Yes.
Hi, it's Pauline. Can I speak? Just say a
Absolutely.
quick word.
Yes.
I agree with Councilor Thomas. It was a very eye-opening listening post, and it just fortifies the point that we need to continue the listening posts as often as we can. These residents were so appreciative of us being there. I mean, they were just like surprised that a council person would come and actually talk to them and care what they said. It was just really amazing. And as John said, it kind of echoed the feeling of the students' concerns with rental issues, yet there were some more unique things that they had. I'll just say one thing, some of the cultures, they leave their shoes outside their door, and the managers of this complex don't allow that. So it's just so a lot of cultural things too that are different with these people, but they just really appreciate being able to ventilate that. And I echo John's sentiment that it would be helpful to have a staff member also along to answer any questions. That's all.
Great.
Just one more comment too was the fact that Iman is working on the creation of a neighborhood association which goes beyond the boundaries of Pheasant Ridge. But I think there too, it's a very encouraging sign, and in a sense, the students too are organizing around their rental issues. So to see that level of engagement at the neighborhood scale, or in the case of the students, kind of more of a student interest matter, but those organizational efforts, I think, are really going to be fruitful dealing with issues that city government is just good to lead on, but just doesn't have the capacity to work through the details.
Another interesting point that came out of it, there was a young man who was fairly new to the community. He came to do graduate study, and from where he is, the country he is, the community is out and about all the time. He sees his neighbors, and he was just shocked. He says, where's the community? Where are the people? So that was kind of an eye-opener. It's like, where are the people? Where is the community? Now, with the COVID scare, there was a reason to kind of stay secluded, but people need to get out and about and meet their neighbors and know what's going on.
All right.
Do we have our next one? It's not scheduled yet, but we said February? Is that right?
Scheduled.
Or is it scheduled?
I think
Oh,
they are.
okay.
Oh, that's
Okay.
So I'm sure you'll swing around and make sure that we solidify dates and get that posted.
Great.
All right. Any other item from 11:23? We're going to move on to December 1st. And there's two things that I know we need to talk about. We'll start with IP6. It's a memo from our city manager on nonprofit capacity building capital grant program. So I'll give the floor to you, Jeff.
Sure. Well, the hope at the end of this discussion is that we can get any feedback from you, make any changes that we need to the process, and then move this forward as our next major ARPA initiative. So back in 2021, we set our ARPA priorities, and related to nonprofits, we created or intended to create both operating and capital grant programs for nonprofits. The operating side was seen to address more of the emergent needs coming out of the pandemic. And as Cassie outlined, we're working through grant agreements totaling $485,000 on the operating side of things. And then in addition to that, the $100,000 for the child care navigator position with 4Cs. So we've done quite a bit on the operating side to assist nonprofits with these ARPA funds. So we're turning our attention next to that capital side of things, and this is really the effort to build capacity to serve. So getting away from some of the emergent needs and focusing on strategic investments in this community, investments that will not only help people today, but will also help future generations as well. Based on those initial 2021 ranges that we provided, and I want you to know those are still flexible, but we're working off those ranges. We'd recommend $3 million in target awards for these capital capacity grants. And we're suggesting a bit of a modified process. So this process looks very different than that operating grant process. The operating grants, we put out very specific criteria that needed to be responded to. We're able to review those almost apples to apples between nonprofits that applied and make recommendations to you. When you're talking about capital projects, those tend to be a lot more complex, and we have to recognize that, especially in the nonprofit world, it may not always be a whole lot of planning around capital, because access to funds is hard. It's hard enough to maintain operations, much less think of ambitious capital plans. So what we want to do here is make sure that we are recognizing that nonprofits in Iowa City may be at different stages of envisioning capital, their capital needs. We have some nonprofits that may have very specific ideas and have developed plans for capital expansion or land acquisition or renovations, and others that maybe have had it on their wish list to say, boy, if we ever had a donor or a grant program come up, we would like to do this, but they haven't necessarily invested in architectural services, engineering services, or maybe looking for land specifically. So I think we need to recognize that folks are going to be at very different levels when we release this, and thus we're looking at a request for statements of interest as opposed to a hard ask situation. If we went with that hard ask, you're probably going to tilt towards those nonprofits that have already started the process of that capital campaign. And at least from staff standpoint, we'd suggest really just starting with that idea phase and recognizing that ideas are going to come at different stages of development. So this process would invite eligible agencies, and I'll walk through that in a minute, to basically apply in narrative form over the next month and a half and let us know what their idea for building capacity is within their organization, and let us know where they're at in that process in developing those plans. We are encouraging partnerships, and so really trying to, whether it's multiple nonprofits coming together or at least discussions to say, hey, if agency X were able to expand, we could see partnerships with them in some new way. So really encouraging letters of support and partnerships as part of this project. We've certainly seen success in the community when agencies have come together and worked together, and we'd ideally like to see that through this grant program. With the $3 million pot of money we have, so to speak, we are anticipating 1 to 3 awards. We don't want to be very specific. I think we want to leave that open, but probably looking at a minimum grant of $1 million up to a maximum grant of 3. If there's one idea that stands above the rest, it may be that the council chooses to fund that one idea with all of these funds. So from the eligibility standpoint, the document states that it would be eligible agencies would be legacy agencies as determined through our aid to agencies granting process. I think you're all familiar with our annual aid to agencies granting process. Those are the agencies that we fund on an annual basis at the operating level. I do need to make a clarification that was brought to my attention after we put this out. There have been a couple of agencies that historically were in the aid to agencies or were considered legacy agencies that were removed over time because other funding sources emerged. So that's the Housing Fellowship and Housing Trust Fund. You may remember the Housing Trust Fund, for example, used to be a legacy agency, and then when we started the $1 million Affordable Housing Fund, and we started transferring a portion over that to the Housing Trust Fund, we allowed for administrative costs to be taken from that contribution to the Housing Trust Fund. And when we did that, we took them out of the legacy agency. So that wasn't really their choice to leave. It was just a different funding source. The Housing Fellowship falls under that category because they are the only agency right now in Iowa City that qualifies for CHODO funding, operating funds through our CDBG program. So nobody else can access those operating funds except for the Housing Fellowship. And historically, they were removed from that aid to agencies process because of those funds. So we would rewrite this eligibility criteria to clarify that any agency that was removed due to other funding sources. I don't know exactly how we would word that, but to clarify that expanded eligibility. We did limit the mission of the organization to housing, food security, health care, which includes mental health care, and youth services, including child care. So really just trying to narrow in. That's still a rather large field that touches most of the legacy agencies, but felt it was important to provide some direction on that. We do have financial reporting standards. We included those as attachments here so you could see what those are. Those were adopted by council, and given the fact we'll be investing public dollars of significant sums, we think it's appropriate that prior to making any award, that any agency can demonstrate that they meet those standards. And then also that the agencies are physically located in Iowa City at the time that they submit. So if I skipped over anything that you want to talk about, let me know. Otherwise, again, we would put this out. In terms of an evaluation process, we are recommending something a little bit different, which is that a staff review committee, and if council's interested, I think having one or two counselors on that committee could be helpful too. But we would review those statements of interest, perhaps interview the applicants, learn a little bit more about their projects, and then come back to the full council with some preliminary awards. And I say preliminary because we have to understand, again, if someone's at the very early stage early idea stage, that it may take a few months for a full proposal to be developed. And a grant agreement to be written. But we'd want to come back, get council consensus on 1, 2, or 3 awards, and then work with those agencies on a schedule that makes sense before coming back to you for those actual agreements.
Jeff, can I interrupt just for clarification? I think you actually preemptively did clarify that there's not a second stage of like an RFP process. It is the statement of interest, and then taking them where they stand, where they're at,
Yep.
meeting them, and then working with them.
Yep.
But the award process is based on this narrative.
Yep.
Okay, thank
Yep.
you.
So you could imagine we might get an agency that says, boy, I'd like to acquire some land and develop this new site, and that sounds good. We think we can leverage funds from this other source, and it all sounds great, and we agree with that plan. Before we can really get to this stage where we're writing a grant agreement, they're going to have to do a couple months of work, maybe work with a realtor to understand availability of properties, maybe cost out a project with a contractor, maybe explore some other grant funds or talk to a capital campaign consultant or their board about a fundraising campaign. So that's the space I think that we're going to have to give some proposals if they're at an early stage to materialize into a full proposal. But there would not be a second stage. We would essentially, as a council, you would say, we're comfortable, staff, with you working with these 2 or 3 agencies to develop full proposals. Certainly, if one were to fall apart, we may have to come back and have discussions, but hopefully that wouldn't be the case.
I'm wondering about the opportunities for collaborative proposals. So if there were multiple legacy agencies that wanted to leverage their, additional fundraising as between them or co-locate on a site or something like that, can this process accommodate that, or would we even maybe encourage that?
Yeah, we're certainly we're trying to encourage those partnerships right out of the gate, but there could be a situation in which we see 2 proposals that say, boy, have you guys talked to each other, or would you consider? And I think this process leaves enough flexibility to have those conversations before we make those preliminary recommendations to council.
Great, thank you.
And I have a question about its, under the statement of interest needs to provide the following, and it's number 2. The phrasing is description of how the project builds community resilience following the COVID-19 pandemic by, et cetera, et cetera. I'm taking it in the spirit that so much of what happened during the pandemic has revealed and exacerbated existing problems, that it's not a matter of, the way that I'm understanding the phrasing is that COVID-19 and these dollars are a springboard for these larger visions about serving the community, not that it's like circling back to say, and this is very COVID-19 specific, it's more, we understand that COVID-19 has created more need.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And it's really about, I think a large intention with these ARPA funds was to build that community resiliency. So when the next challenge comes along, be it a pandemic, be it a natural disaster, be it climate changes, that the community has a stronger support network, and certainly the nonprofit support network fits under that. So I'd focus less on the COVID-19 piece.
Yeah.
That is the source of the funds and the impetus, but it's really, are we making an investment that makes our community more resilient, provides a greater support network for whatever challenge comes our way next?
I know the budget doesn't get into specifics, but oftentimes when we see grant programs, there's always this element of we need to see some skin in the game from that organization. And can you speak to if someone came in, with the budget that we will be funding 100% of their requests, let's say they had $1 million, can you speak to a little bit of that as far as what the staff, might see that as? Because that's 100% funding.
Yeah, so some of your early ARPA goals that you established highlighted the desire to leverage funding as best as that you can. So we'd certainly like to see our dollars leverage private or other available funding sources, but we didn't feel comfortable saying that was going to be a hard scoring criteria because we don't really know what opportunities may be out there, or what ability an organization has to truly fundraise. So we didn't want to just discount somebody that couldn't leverage any other funds. Frankly, it could be a service that's being provided that greatly needs to expand, that there's demand in our community for this to expand, but there hasn't been an ability to access other funds for so long. This may be that one-time shot, I guess is what I'm saying, to do that. So we didn't want to exclude it, but I think with any program like this that we're administering, we like to see the leverage, so, funds leverage. So it's definitely at minimum would be a conversation we have with someone that's submitting, and we would make sure that they've explored every avenue to leverage funds. But if they can't, if it is a 100% request, it wouldn't immediately be discounted.
Well, I'd be interested in assisting in any group of folks who might be evaluating the initial statements, but I don't know how you might want to proceed with having council representation in that group.
I don't want any part of picking the council representation. I'm just welcoming it. If you feel like that would be beneficial, we would welcome. I would say no more than 2 is probably best, but yeah, that's going to be the hard decision for you.
Well, and I would definitely be interested in it as well. My eyes kind of lit up at it. So, I mean, if it's acceptable to council to have a couple on, I personally do think it could be a really good way to, again, sort of have multiple perspectives and vantage points and a lot of opportunities to ask questions and to kind of co-create something or to that's not the right way to put it, actually, but to better serve the entities that have the vision, and to have a lot of input from different areas, or to have input from different areas. So I do think it would be useful to have counselors on it, and I don't know if 2 ends up being too many cooks, but I would love to, and I would love to do it with you.
I think this is a great program that we're going to be navigating, and I think 2 counselors would be definitely appropriate to be appointed or to be a part of this. I have no issues at all with both of you being a part. I don't know if there's anyone else that has interest in being a part, so maybe we can open the floor to anyone else that has interest in being a part.
I do not.
Okay. Anyone?
It's interesting. I would just, those that want to do it, I'm very fine with it.
And then anyone it's supportive of these 2 being a part, which they both get a vote. So, yes, okay. So
Yes.
there you go.
Yes.
All right, have fun.
Hey, Janice is like, nope, I'm staying. I'm going to do this.
Well,
I'm just struck at how incredibly fortunate we are as a community to be able to sort of think about these new, different ways to support the community and support these organizations.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting program, and the way the request has been structured, I think, is really interesting. So I'm really excited about seeing where this might go. And, as you were saying, Councilor Weiner, I think it sort of speaks to the capacity of Iowa City to consider this as a possible outcome.
I mean, I thank you, Jeff and staff, for imagining this a bit. When we first got the funds, we talked about that let's look at this and think like 10 years or 20 years from now, let's look back and say, we really did something to improve and advance this community, and this is the sort of piece that can do that.
I mean, it seems, at least my sense is so many of our nonprofits had similar origins in time. You know, many of them were late 60s, early 70s. Maybe this is another moment in which we begin to see a surge in, you know, gaining strength in those areas of resiliency.
Yeah. All right. Any other comments?
So just to clarify, our intention will be to release this, if not tomorrow, sometime later this week, and then submittals will be due January 31st, and we'll get the committee together in early February to start to review those.
Great. All right. We'll go to IP7, which is the USG joint session. And Keaton, you and you're both Noah. Welcome to come back up. But really, this is probably just checking a date off of what has already been submitted by Keaton in an email. The only date that I personally saw that I might suggest we avoid is the 14th of February, but I'm a newlywed, so. Yes.
I saw that too.
Yes.
Is there a time of day that you folks were thinking?
I'm pretty sure the last joint session we had was around like 6:30, 7-ish, or 6 to 7-ish. So we could definitely adjust that, but sometime in the later
evening.
afternoon would
Okay.
be best. Evening, yes.
Is there any day that people would say, or date to avoid?
Well,
Outside of maybe the 14th.
I would not be able to attend any of the dates after the 23rd of February. So the
Okay.
March dates, I have.
What was the date on this email? I'm having trouble finding it.
It's actually
It's in our packet.
Oh, you said email. I was in the wrong place.
Yep.
Pardon?
48 of your packet, December 1st.
Oh, yes, here it is.
So I don't know if Wednesday, Thursdays, there is a Tuesday in there. If anyone has any issues with between a 6 and a 7 start. And I guess maybe we can zone in on just go ahead and picking a date, because this is what they submitted as options. And I'm assuming this is when you all already meet?
We usually meet on a Tuesday, but it's kind of, the dates are offshoots, so it's kind of difficult. Especially, we're doing elections again in April, so these are the dates that are available for currently. We usually meet on Tuesday, sorry.
Sure.
I'm wondering about, do people prefer the same week as a council meeting or in between? In between maybe would be February 15th, I think.
I prefer the same week.
Okay.
I'm sorry, John, did you say the 22nd you were not available?
22nd of.
February, I'm
No,
sorry.
that's fine. It's the March dates.
Oh, the March, okay.
And the 28th that I'm not free for.
What about, not to say that we have to go with the week when we meet, but what about February 8th? I mean, that's the first date. It's a Wednesday between 6 and 7 p.m.
Yep, I've got a conflict with it.
All right.
Get event that night.
And Thursday, conflict as well.
Thursday the 9th does not look like a conflict.
And
Thursday,
Counselor
February 9th.
Taylor, what does Thursday the 9th look like for you?
Thursday the 9th would be fine with me.
Good for me.
Yep.
Thursday the 9th it is.
That works
And-
great. Oh, sorry.
Yes, we'll have a new counselor, but hopefully,
Their ability to attend.
hopefully they'll be able to attend, and if they're not, sometimes you can't make them all.
And what time do we say that we're starting? 6?
We'll get a confirmed time
Okay.
within the next couple of weeks.
Yeah. Yes, we'll send that as soon as we have it, preferably within the first week, yes.
All right, thank
Good.
you.
Thank you so much.
Can I say one brief thing to Keenan? First of all, thank you very much. And secondly, please keep in touch with me as I transition to a new role. We need to work together on your rental checklist.
Definitely, that would be great.
Great. Thank you both. All right. We are going to open it up to any other items in December 1st info packet. Hearing none. Council updates on assigned boards, commissions, and committees.
Had an ECOG meeting last week, and I think maybe the most exciting thing is just how they're continuing with the implementation of the Envision East Central Iowa plan and being very aware of other regional planning activities. Clearly, with Karen Kurt assisting us, that helps here. But yeah, so continuing on with that effort, even though I think my term on ECOG is done now. So it's just 1 year, right? Pretty sure. We'll confirm.
Yeah. So we'll have that fun discussion next January.
Yeah, the JEXA has not met, but is going to meet next Friday. And that will be my final meeting as chair of that. So that you'll also need to appoint someone else to that.
I probably jumped too quick. I did want to make a statement about the in the December 1st info packet because we had 10 applicants to date that have submitted for the open seat on council that is pending. And I guess overall, I want to say thanks to the community for reaching out and saying, hey, I would love to be a part of what's happening here. I've found it to be surprising that there are 10 people. When I look at the past, at least 2 elections, there was only 1 extra person, we'll say, for each of those elections. And now we're with this opportunity where there's a vacant seat and the council intends to appoint, and there's 10 applicants. So I'm trying to figure out, what does that mean? Does it really mean that the barrier is has kind of been broken for a lot of individuals that would like to try something in politics? Although we know the world of politics, you have to run a campaign. I mean, that's, there are some realities about a campaign, but I also think that this is an opportunity right now for some individuals that may not have, running a campaign was a barrier. So, and yeah, I'm very excited to see the 10 that have already applied, and I anticipate we'll see some more.
Actually, I have a question, logistical and perhaps even legal, surrounding appointment, because I know that other municipalities have had, for lack of a better way to put it, kind of a gentleman's agreement with those who they have appointed, saying, we strongly encourage you not to run in the next election because there's that sense of having gained name recognition in the community without having gone through the election campaigning process. And I wanted to know, we haven't talked about that. I don't know if it's our place to do that, if there's legal considerations or if there are logistical ones, but I wanted to raise it now since we were talking about this application process, and I know that other municipalities have talked to different people who they've appointed to say the understanding is that you would not run in this particular, right again, due to sort of that sense that there might be a leg up.
Right.
So I just wondered, can you speak to that a little bit?
Sure. I assume you're referring to Coralville, who is rather explicit about that interest. I talked to their city attorney about their process to see what lessons I could take, and he was clear with me that his advice to them was clear as well, which is that would not be enforceable. Right. Folks could say, I won't run again. I have no intention of running again, and if they decide to run again, of course, they can do so. Is that a fair consideration for this council to consider in looking at applicants? Certainly. If it's of value to you that this is someone who's going to be kind of a caretaker position and not someone who's going to be running again, you could, that's fine. You could say that. It's fine for you not to say that. That's entirely within your discretion.
Thank you.
I'm pretty sure that the school board here had the same intention, but they could not find someone who did not want to run again. And they appointed anyway, so that's
Yeah.
where they.
Right, and I think that was the other, I'd forgotten that it was school board, but yeah, and I don't have a runner in the race. I just thought because this is part of the conversation recently with with appointments that I wanted to get some clarity, so.
Sure.
By the way, they're doing the same thing in Bettendorf, which is another community that's not prone to appointments.
I think that's a hard, topic.
It is.
I think when someone, if they have a desire to serve on this council, certainly someone may, come out and say, I just want to come and, do a filler until next December. But if they did it out of expectation, I think that they potentially, one, they haven't done this work potentially, and when you're doing this work, it's pretty important work, and it's kind of hard, to walk away. If your heart is in it, and it's important work. It kind of draws you in, and so I wouldn't want to put someone personally in a position that, where my expectation was for them to only serve through the end of December next year and not sign up for reelection. Although I can understand that logic. Incumbents, an incumbent does have, in some regards, a leg up, but I think more so they have history because they voted, so the community, they have a record that people can draw back on. And so I wouldn't want to hold anyone to that.
I tend to agree with you, Mayor, just in terms of not asking for that commitment, maybe for a little bit different reasons, but I really appreciate what you said about are we seeing more interest because of lowering the barrier? And, just my own experience is that the skills of campaigning versus the skills of governing are very different, and finding people who are willing and able to do both of them well is just not it's a big ask. And so I think the opportunity for someone to serve who may be very well suited to the service, but maybe might not have been as, that the barrier part, as you mentioned, I'm not saying we want to. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's kind of what was in my head. Is just that those roles are different, and I appreciate the opportunity for someone to step into the service and see if they maybe want to run for a longer term.
I appreciate you articulating that, because I think they are very different skill sets.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but and I'm sure that my answer may have invited this discussion, but
Yes.
since we haven't really noticed this topic to this degree of,
Sorry.
yeah, no, that's okay. If we
Yes.
could wrap up.
We will move on if there's nothing else. All right, we'll be back at 6 p.m. All right. Well, welcome everyone. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Today is December 6, 2022, and this is the Iowa City City Council formal meeting. Roll call, please.
Alter.
Here.
Burgess.
Here.
Harmson.
Here.
Taylor.
Here on Zoom.
Teague.
Here.
Thomas.
Here.
Weiner.
Here.
All right. Well, welcome to your City Hall, to everyone that is here present in the audience, and to anyone that is on Zoom and other social media outlets. Welcome as well. Before we get started today, I wanted to do a few things. One, I wanted to announce that do we have confirmation that the winter shelter at Guy and Link Center is open? It opened yesterday, so wanted people to be aware of that. Also, I know many of people have heard in the news about what happened in Colorado Springs at Club Q. And so I wanted to just take a moment of silence. The last time we met was on the 15th of November. And on that day, I did a Transgender Day of Remembrance, which was the date of that is November 20th. And so Club Q, this is a gay club where 5 people were murdered and 22 injured. So I wanted to just take a moment of silence for those individuals. I will also say that Iowa City has been a very welcoming place for our LGBTQ plus members, and the federal government, as many of you may have heard, or at least the Senate has signaled for the same-sex marriage bill, and so I think that is a very positive movement. We just have to wait to see how all of that plays out. Today is the last day for Councilor Weiner. She has been elected, as many know, to a state Senate seat, and we're very proud of you. I wanted to just take some time to allow the council and staff to say any parting words to you.
Thank you. I'll keep mine until the end of the meeting.
Great.
Well, I'll start. Janice, you and I, of course, got the opportunity to join at the same time. And from election night forward, I have learned so much from you and been so grateful for your leadership and your guidance and your willingness to stand up and speak out and act for what is right and just in our community. And we're very excited that you'll be representing us still in the state legislature. Thank you so much for serving on council.
I certainly will miss our conversations and, your brilliance. So good luck in Des Moines. You will need it, I think. But
Well, I second what has already been said, but truly one of the things that I have appreciated the most, and I indicated it was, is the kind of determination and follow-up. That you see something and you follow it all the way to the end. You find an answer, you pose a question, you dive in with both feet, and all for the causes of how is this going to make our community better. And that's not something that you just put on. That's truly who you are, and it was who you were before you ever got elected. And I'm just thrilled that you're going to be my senator.
Well, I'm going to miss having my partner here on this end of the dais. It's been great working with you, not just this past year, but one of those people that was fortunate enough that we've gotten to work together on other sorts of committees and other bodies before we found ourselves up here together. And so I'm well acquainted with your work ethic and your perseverance, and that's how you got here, and that's how you're getting to Des Moines. And I'd say we're going to miss you, but we're actually going to be bugging you a lot, so we won't miss you. We'll just be interacting in a different way, but I'm looking forward to see what you can do out there and continuing our friendship for years to come.
Thank you.
And Councilor Taylor?
Yes, I'd like to chime in, echo Councilor Hermsen that I will miss sitting next to you in the council seats. It's always hard when a new person comes on the council. You have no idea how they're going to function, how they'll work as a team player. But right from day one, you came in with your boots on the ground, and you've been an excellent team player. And I'm certainly going to miss you on the council, but am so excited to see you going to Des Moines.
Great. And welcome any staff comments at this time.
Well, Janice, it's been an absolute pleasure. Usually when council members start, we have a ramp-up period of several months to get you kind of up to speed on a number of issues. We didn't really have that luxury in 2020 when you started, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate all the effort and time you went in, not only to the routine business of the city when maybe there wasn't the support network with staff to help get you up to speed on all those issues, but you not only did that, you helped lead us through a very challenging time in 2020, and that gives me great confidence in your skills and ability to lead at the state level too. I greatly look forward to working with you in your new capacity as state senator.
I'll just echo the comments of the other counselors. It's great to work with someone who's passionate about being a public servant, and that's been, a part of your entire working career, working first for the federal government and now with city government and going on to state government. I'll just end by saying it's great to have friends in high places, and so like Councilor Harmsen said, we'll be looking forward to talking to you with your new role. Congratulations.
I'd just like to say it's been nice getting to know you and working with you, and you'll be missed.
Well, Councilor Weiner, in 2020 is when you started, and January seemed very normal. And then the world shifted. And as the world shifted, I began to work with all of the counselors very intently. But I have to say that Councilor Weiner, when it came down to COVID, she really did spend a lot of time doing a lot of research and making sure that we were updated as a body and doing what we could to make sure that we took care of this community. Not only did COVID happen, but social justice happened as well, where there was an outcry within our community. And I have just really appreciated working with you. Now, she does dig her heels in the sand when she wants something on the agenda or when she wants us to get a message, and I really appreciate that. And I think what we've experienced here and have benefited here locally, we're going to continue to benefit with your work at the state level. So thank you so much. And we have a few parting gifts for you. And we also have a picture of Iowa City. So, great.
I know where that is. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, we are going to move on to the consent agenda, which is items 2 through 6. Could I get a motion to approve, please?
So moved.
Second, Alter.
Moved by Weiner, seconded by Alter. And is there anyone from the public that would like to address a topic that is within our consent agenda? If you are online, please raise your hand. If you're in the audience, please come forth. Online, I'm going to welcome Latina Roberts. Please state your name and the city you're from, and everyone is given up to 3 minutes. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Latina Roberts. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening, Mayor T. You're the mayor, right?
Yes.
Okay. I sent the email to you about a month and a half ago. Did you get it?
This is an opportunity for you to talk about anything that is on the consent agenda. If you want to come back and talk about something that's not on the consent agenda, we'll be back at public comment in a second.
Okay, the email that I sent to you was about a situation that I was having with Shelter House, and I've been there. This is my second meeting coming to the council. I came in person, and now I'm online.
Yep. So we'll get back to an opportunity for you to speak about your situation.
Okay.
All right. All right. Anyone else want to talk about something that is related to the items listed on the consent agenda? Seeing no one, council discussion. Roll call, please.
Harmson,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes.
Teague,
Yes.
Thomas,
Yes.
Weiner,
Yes.
Alter,
Yes.
Burgess.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. We are on to item number 7, which is a time for community comment. Individuals will be given 3 minutes to speak. And there is a sign up at the back of the room, as well as a sticker at the back of the room that you can sign, and then there's a sign up at the front of the room. We ask that you give your name and the city you're from. And we're going to welcome Latina. If you want to speak at this time, this is your opportunity. And I also want to just acknowledge that council cannot respond, but we can certainly listen to and welcome anyone to make comments. Welcome, Latina.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me,
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes, welcome.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. I'm coming to this meeting again because I've been having an issue with Shelter House. And, this is a continuous problem. Now, I've been trying to still get help with funding, with housing from them, and they keep trying to send me elsewhere instead of them helping me. Why is it that Shelter House is allowed to receive all this funding and they are not helping the community? I am a mother with 5 children, homeless, living in a hotel for 4 months. I've come in and spoke my story. I lost 2 children this year, and I'm still homeless, and I've been trying to get help from Shelter House, and they still will not help me. And I really will, even though if you cannot answer that, but that is a question, not just for myself and my family, but the countless families out here. Why aren't they helping us? There's no way they could get all this money and not place these homeless families. They will place a single person, but they will not place a family. That's an issue. The people is who make the county. I'm done.
Thank you. Anyone else like to address a topic that is not on our agenda? Welcome.
What do I want for Christmas? I'm asking Santa. I'll direct my Santa request to Mayor Teague, who could play Santa for tonight. More affordable housing. What this woman spoke about is harrowing. We're all sitting around here wearing nice clothes, going home to nice places, but we do not have enough resources for people. More affordable housing, more shelter housing, and even a consideration like the ecumenical towers. We can do better. We can have another ecumenical towers in downtown where people who are handicapped or older can have the resources of the town. So number 1 on my Christmas list, Santa, Teague, and your elves, one who's departing for a bigger office over there. I'm asking for this because people have to live. You can't live in fear and live in being hungry. And that woman who spoke before me, I don't think you could say it more poignantly. Number 2, Santa, please, tasers are torture, are dangerous. People do not recover from them. The electric chair in our country is banned. There's a reason for that. The electric chair is considered torture, driving electricity through a person's body. Iowa City Police have tasers. I have seen them use the taser in person, and it was one of the most horrifying things I've ever seen. I believe we should not spend money on those things in this town, and that we should work to eliminate tasers. And just because other people in other cities have those things doesn't mean that we have to have them. And we can lead, we don't have to follow. I believe the taser is a brutal device. It is used to encourage compliance, to make people just do anything that they are told to do, whether it's their rights or not their rights. That's number two. I have so many, Santa. Like a little kid, I would like so many things. I would like public utilities, so we wouldn't have to pay so much for them. Public hookups, so we wouldn't pay so much for that. I would like public press. Why not a public press? Do you know all our papers are corporate? We have our friends back there from Gannett and other places. That would be nice. There's so much things that we could have. Please, help us out in the community. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Online, we're going to welcome Felicia. Welcome.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, welcome.
Hi, my name is Felicia Pieper. I live in Iowa City. I just wanted to echo what Latina said. I know Latina personally. I've been working with her for months, trying to get her the things that the people who are paid to do things aren't doing. I would like to see more transparency. I'm really glad to hear that the winter shelter is open. It's the middle of December in a colder winter. People would already be freezing. We've already had freezing days. I'd like to see more transparency with our social services, particularly our homelessness services in the community, considering that our homeless neighbors are some of our most vulnerable neighbors. And I find it just atrocious that we don't have any public accountability to make sure that those folks are getting the services that they deserve and that we're claiming that they're getting. There's this whole string of problems, including not only the rapid housing, but also the eviction prevention program, that multiple programs are failing folks. I've witnessed it firsthand. Well, not firsthand, but along as an advocate. I've witnessed the way that staff treat folks over there. I've witnessed how just people are not receiving the services that they're claiming that they're receiving. And just as a community member, I would like to see our neighbors be treated with dignity, and that we're putting real emphasis on making sure that people are getting the tangible resources that they need. I think that Shelter House does good work in the community, and they're an important part of this community, but it's also really devastating to see how they don't show up for some people, and seeing the effects of that. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to welcome Hannah online as well. Welcome.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, welcome.
Hi. Thanks. My name is Hannah. I also a community member, I just want to echo what the previous speakers have all been saying, and that I think this all sort of revolves around the fact that our city could be doing so much more, and it's really easy to sort of profess these liberal ideals, but I really like what the previous speakers have been saying, that to sort of push us to expand our horizons for what is possible, and for us to think about the fact that we don't have to be relegating these kinds of services to private entities that we're not able to hold accountable. We don't have to be relegating them to corporate entities that are profit seeking, especially. We see time and time again what happens when we do that. We are not able to serve people in the way that works for them, and we continue to see unhoused populations. Despite the fact that, the previous speakers have said, Shelter House gets a lot of money, so would ask the city council to continue to consider that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to address a topic that is not on our agenda? Seeing no one, we're going to move on to item number 8, discrimination against Section 8 tenants. This is an ordinance amending Title II entitled Human Rights, Chapter 1, entitled General Provisions to eliminate the prohibition on landlords discriminating against housing choice voucher holders, and this is the first consideration. Could I get a motion, please?
So moved, Thomas.
Second, Burgess.
All right, and we're going to welcome Eric Goers, our city attorney, to talk about this item.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is one of those matters where we're cleaning up city code as a result of state action that's been taken to preempt earlier action that the city took. In this case, the city passed an ordinance that protected tenants who were paying with Section 8 or housing choice vouchers from being discriminated against by their landlords. The state legislature, and we were one of, I think, 3 cities in the state that I'm aware of anyway, who passed similar protections. The state chose to preempt our ability to do that, and that will be effective January 1st of 23. And so as not to leave language that's void and unenforceable in the city code, which might be a trap for the unwary, we're asking the council to go ahead and repeal that portion. I'll be specific that we were, I'll say, surgical in the removal. The protections against discrimination are for a number of income sources and so forth, all of which will remain in the ordinance. We are only removing the part for which we've been preempted by the state, and that's the housing choice vouchers, commonly referred to as Section 8 vouchers. So we are removing that part, leaving everything else as is, and that's what we're doing with this. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Eric, do you know if there are any protections under federal law for people who are using Section 8 vouchers that mirror this?
I'll say I'm not aware of any, nor have I researched that topic, though.
Any other questions for the city attorney?
I do have a question, Mayor. So, Eric, you mentioned this could be a trap for the unwary. What's the risk or the harm to the city in leaving this in place?
Well, are you asking politically or legally?
Both.
Okay, fair. Well, politically, that we would have stuff on the books that's wrong. The example I use when explaining this is if you were to look to see in Iowa code whether same-sex marriage is legal in the state, you would find that it is not, because that's what the statute says. Of course, we're all aware of the 2008 Varnum decision, which makes same-sex marriage legal in in Iowa, to say nothing of the subsequent federal U.S. Supreme Court case. But it lingers there, and it may serve to confuse people. Is there a risk to the city legally? I'm not sure.
I mean, just as an example, our next item is something that's been unenforceable on the books for the last 3 years, and we weren't in any hurry to clean that up.
Right. That's a fair comment. I think reasonable legal minds will differ on this point. My personal preference is to clean up matters that are in the code that aren't enforceable. I don't see any point in having them in the Code of Ordinances. I know other attorneys, other city attorneys disagree and think, well, that's just fine, we'll leave them in place. Oftentimes there's not the political will to make a change, particularly if the elected body strongly disagrees with being preempted. I think that goes without saying here. Obviously, we the city council, passed this in order to provide this protection. I think everyone is aware that this council would prefer for that protection to remain. So I don't think there can be any confusion about that. But you raise a fair point. If council wishes it to remain in place, certainly we could do that. we would just, I mean, and to be clear, both with the next item that you've referenced, Councilor Burgess, and this item, I mean, our staff has already made it clear to staff, city staff that works in this area that the next item has not been enforceable for several years. The new item will not be enforceable as of January 1. So I think there's little risk that we will get in trouble that way.
I did want to just quick follow up if I could. So do I understand correctly based on how the strike through is that landlords are still prohibited from discriminating based on source of income for all these other reasons except for the vouchers?
That's correct, because Senate File 252 spoke only to the federal housing choice voucher. And so
Because-
it is only that we are eliminating. We're leaving everything else, all the other protections in place.
And I think we really need to market that, given how this agenda item reads, given the publicity around the law change. I mean, I really did think until you said that source of income had been eliminated as a way of, as a protected.
We can certainly work with communications to inform the public of that.
If no other questions, anyone from the public like to address this topic? Seeing no one. City Council discussion.
I was horrified last year when the legislature passed this, essentially making discrimination legitimate. I'm no less horrified now that we're faced with the reality of presumably having to make sure that our laws apply with it. I'm grateful that we have a lot of these other items in here that still exist, at least so far. But the principle of legalizing discrimination just is horrifying.
I just think that this is just sad, sad, sad. I remember when this first came up and we as a council agreed to put this in there about the Section 8 discrimination. And I was shocked to see and hear that landlords actually had in their ads for their apartments, Section 8 need not apply. And that was just so sad. And I just think this is horrible that we need to do this. But thank you, Councilor Burgess, for bringing up about the income guidelines. That's good that that's still in place. But it's just yet another indication why we are so happy to have Councilor Weiner going to Des Moines. That'll be great to have her there to try to avoid these kinds of situations.
Yes, I have a question to the rest of council and to a certain extent to Eric. It's an uncomfortable question. Do we need to strike this? And I know you said some city attorneys say no. One of the things that I was struck by in your description, Eric, was about talking about a council having the political will. We had the political will to put in the protection, right? Well, will there be if the language is taken out, is it going to be remembered? Say that we finally flip at the state and this is removed and we can put this back in, right? I mean, there's a whole lot of if-thens, and that's a lot of ways down the road. Isn't there an argument to be made to say, let's leave it in there that it's not enforceable now, but if and when the time comes, we already have it here and we can just start enforcing it, instead of having to say, let's bring this to the council, whoever they might be, find out if there's the will, go through the language change, right? I mean, so I guess I'm asking the uncomfortable question of, can we say, no, we don't agree with this and we want the language to stay? And I have not queried my other counselors, so this is Megan doing surprise, but it's a genuine question about where we're
If you're
at with
asking legally, can that be done? Yes, absolutely. Critics of that would say it's a zombie law or something that comes back from the dead upon, and the question is whether it's still appropriate for the times. I don't think there's much risk of that here. I mean, I think, unless there's a change in the program or the federal program or how it works, I think that'd be fine.
If I may jump in on this one, I understand the political desire to to not accept this or leave this on the books. I just want to walk through some of the practical challenges. The city code is a body of work compiled over decades and decades and decades, and the staff here continue, when we research items, we have to go back and try to understand what may have led to the creation of code items 50, 60, 70 years ago. And that's hard enough as it is. If we don't clean up the code periodically and we leave things in there that are unenforceable, it can become a challenge. It wouldn't be a challenge in the short term for your current staff, but as we turn over and a resident calls your human rights office 15 years from now and says, I think I was discriminated against because of this voucher, that can cause confusion down the line. One instance isn't a big deal, but I generally would urge the council not to try to make political statements in the code and look for other opportunities to voice your displeasure or advocate for changes. That said, if you leave it in, it's not a huge deal.
Yeah, I guess I would echo just comment to the effect that, the staff who are on board now and have been trained by the people who are on board now know this and, know not to enforce it and so forth. But as Jeff says, 10 or 15 years from now, if, someone answers the phone, some staff member answers the phone to someone and says just exactly that, then there's a real risk that they just go and look at the code and give a quick answer and then, we end up getting sued because they indicate that that's an illegal action on the part of the landlord when it's not.
That's a helpful explanation.
Yeah.
Any other comments by council? Or do we have public comment yet? I can't remember on this side. Yeah, that's what I thought. No one came up. All right. I guess I agree with my fellow councilors here that this is very unfortunate. My mind thinks about, how with the state doing what they did, is there another option for housing choice vouchers to be distributed where it falls within the things that are still protected? Is it more of, right now it has to be given to the landlord. Of course, one example is there another indirect way? But of course, there's the Section 8 housing review that has to take place. So there's a lot of elements to this at the end of the day. I'm going to vote to repeal this off our books, knowing that this is something that we need to continue to fight for. And it's just unfortunate that our state did kind of prohibit this here locally for us.
Yeah, we do have later in our agenda the adopting our legislative priorities, and this is really one of those aspects, is trying to insist and advocate for home rule so we have control over our own ordinances. That to me is kind of the political action that we need to do.
Mm-hmm.
Just want to agree with my council, members of the council, that this is it's just kind of sick that we are in this position. And it's one of those things that makes me stay awake at night, being angry when I see stuff like this that's being forced down our throats. And then when I realize, too, that not only is this a giveaway or whatever that hurts members of our city, but on top of that, the same state legislature has made sure that these same landlords who refuse Section 8 get a nice tax cut. And so that just drives me nuts. So whether or not I vote for or against this, that's, that's definitely something that just sticks in my craw.
If no more council comments, roll call, please.
Taylor?
Reluctantly, yes.
Teague?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Weiner?
Yes.
Alter?
Yes.
Burgess?
Yes.
Harmson?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Item number 9 is repeal of rental permit cap. Ordinance amending Title 17 entitled Building and Housing, Chapter 5 entitled Housing Code to repeal the rental permit cap provision. This is first consideration. Could I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Weiner, seconded by Alter. And this is, our city attorney will talk about this as well.
Similar idea to the last item, Mayor, although this one, as Councilor Burgess mentioned, is a little older. And unfortunately, we were not able to be as surgical with this one as we were with the last one. The state preemption was encompassed the entirety of what we were trying to achieve, which is to try to stabilize some of the single-family residence neighborhoods with single-family homes and duplexes. And the state was pretty explicit about preempting our ability to do so, saying a city shall not adopt or enforce any regulation, restriction, or other ordinance related to residential property rental permit caps on single-family homes or duplexes. Well, okay. I mean, that's what we were doing. So again, there are a number of other elements to this chapter within our code, but the parts that refer to the rental permit cap are all going to have to be, well, they're all unenforceable now, and we are asking the council to repeal them for the same reasons I outlined earlier.
Any questions for Eric? Anyone from the community want to address this topic? Seeing no one, council discussion.
You know, this is same issues apply. We still have the instabilities, and it's a very nuanced and complex process, or not process, but issue to try to address. And it remains with us, and you know, we need to try to be as creative as we can be in terms of our policies in these areas that are affected, to try to address the fact that we cannot control rental properties in the way we've traditionally done that.
All right. Roll call, please.
Teague,
Yes.
Thomas,
Yes.
Weiner,
Yes.
Alter,
Yeah.
Burgess,
Yes.
Harmson,
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Item number 10 is sidewalk cafes expand locations. Ordinance amending Title 10 entitled Public Ways and Property, Chapter 3 entitled Commercial Use of Sidewalks to allow sidewalk cafes outside of the downtown and Riverside and riverfront crossings. This is second consideration, and staff has requested expedited action.
I move that the rule requiring that ordinances must be considered and voted on for passage at 2 council meetings prior to the meeting at which it is to be finally passed be suspended, that the second consideration and vote be waived, and that the ordinance be voted on for final passage at this time.
Second, Taylor.
Moved by Weiner, seconded by Taylor. Anyone from the public like to address this topic? Seeing no one, council discussion. Roll call, please.
Thomas,
Yes.
Weiner,
Yes.
Alter,
Yes.
Burgess,
Yes.
Harmson,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes.
Teague.
Yes. Motion passes 7-0. Could I get a motion to pass and adopt?
So moved, Harmson.
Second, Weiner.
Roll call, please.
Weiner,
Yes.
Alter,
Yes.
Burgess,
Yes.
Harmson,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes.
Teague,
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Item number 11 is sidewalk cafes policy changes. This is a resolution adopting a policy for use of public right-of-way and city plaza for sidewalk cafes and rescinding resolution number 21-133. Could I get a motion to approve, please?
So moved, Thomas.
Moved by Thomas, seconded by Weiner. And we're going to have staff comment from our Assistant City Manager, Rachel. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. So the last item on your agenda was the code portion of those recommended sidewalk cafe changes that you first discussed back in September. So this item is the policy changes. So as you'll recall, our sidewalk cafe program is governed by both ordinance for some things and policy for others. So I'll briefly kind of recap what the policy changes include, and then I'll be happy to take any questions if you have those. So there's 3 primary changes. First, we plan to eliminate the collection of deposits for most sidewalk cafes. So we'll still collect or retain any deposits that we currently have on cafes that are in a planter or that would construct or pour concrete, some kind of a platform, just because of that more invasive nature. But for all the other sidewalk cafes, we would plan to either credit or return those deposits through this next renewal period in the coming weeks, and then we would not collect deposits going forward. The second change would be that we are establishing a new minor cafe designation. So as you recall, this is kind of that concept targeting those businesses who just need something a little bit smaller than that standard cafe. So this would only be for businesses that do not have a liquor license, and they would just operate under a little bit of a reduced set of requirements. Notably, they would not need to have fencing. They'd have a little bit of a streamlined application process, and then would pay a nominal flat fee as opposed to that square footage fee. These minor cafes would be just limited to 2 bistro tables each with 2 chairs each, so really targeting those smaller businesses. Your Witch Witch on Dubuque Street or Yotopia on the Ped Mall would be good examples of maybe businesses that could qualify for a minor cafe. And then the final change in this policy, it was actually was not included in those initial recommendations in that memo you considered back in September. But we are recommending that we no longer offer the option for sidewalk cafes to be put in planter beds going forward. So any that are there now, they'd still be allowed to they can continue to operate, whether it's under this owner or if it sells and it's a new owner operating the restaurant. But we would just not consider or approve any moving forward. Again, this is just kind of recognizing the amount of investment that has gone into our streetscape and amenity improvements in the downtown and in the Ped Mall, and try to maintain those for just that vibrant environment. So with approval tonight, we would work on incorporating all of these changes into the 2023 renewal period, which staff would be beginning within the next couple of weeks. Happy to take any questions if you have any.
None, thank you. Anyone from the public like to address this topic? If so, please come forth. If you're online, please raise your hand. Seeing no one, council discussion. Roll call, please.
Alter,
Yes.
Burgess,
Yes.
Harmson,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes.
Teague,
Yes.
Thomas,
Yes.
Weiner.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Item number 12, ARPA UI Labor Center Construction Apprenticeship Opportunity Program. This is a resolution authorizing the mayor to sign a state and local fiscal recovery fund grant agreement with the University of Iowa Labor Center to administer the quality pre-apprenticeship program. Can I get a motion to approve, please?
So moved, Weiner.
Second, Alter.
All right, and we're going to welcome Cassandra.
Good evening,
Welcome.
Council. As you mentioned, as part of the American Rescue Plan Act, the city was awarded the state and local fiscal recovery funds dollars to respond to the impacts of COVID-19. This resolution would authorize a subrecipient grant agreement with the University of Iowa Labor Center for $435,239 to administer the Quality Pre-Apprenticeship Program, which would create a pathway for Iowa City residents to qualify for and secure careers in the building and construction trades. To provide a little bit more information on that, I'd like to introduce Robin Clark Bennett and Paul Iverson from the University of Iowa Labor Center.
Thank you. And welcome.
Thank you.
Yes.
Good evening. And I want to thank Cassie Grip and Tracy Heitschuh and Jeff Fruin for all your work in helping us prepare this. So I'm Robin Clark Bennett, and I'm the director of the Labor Center at the University of Iowa. And I think all of you know this, but just as background, we just celebrated our 70th anniversary. The Labor Center is the only unit within the state region system that focuses on research and education for Iowa workers. And last year, for example, we taught 92 classes across the 99 counties for more than 2,000 Iowans. And so in addition to that programming, in 2019, we launched a new program with the Iowa State Building Construction Trades Council that makes tonight's program possible. And really, the program is designed to address both the acute need for skilled tradespeople in the construction trades because of retirements and the rise in infrastructure investments, as well as the urgent need for quality jobs in our community, particularly among people in communities that are historically underrepresented in building construction trades careers and who were disproportionately harmed by the pandemic. So I'm going to introduce my colleague, Paul Iverson, who leads our quality pre-apprenticeship.
Thanks, Robin. Yes, I'm the coordinator of our Quality Pre-Apprenticeship Program, and one of the things when there were the public comments on affordable housing, there are two different ways of working at affordable housing. One is building housing that is cheap enough for people to afford with the jobs they have, and another is to get people into jobs that pay them a family supporting wage and benefits so that they can afford housing. And so the goal of the Department of Labor in establishing quality pre-apprenticeship programs was to increase opportunities for underserved communities in the building and construction trades. As Robin said, in 2019, we started our quality pre-apprenticeship program, and we are recognized by the Department of Labor as a quality pre-apprenticeship program. Quality pre-apprenticeship program is what they call it, so I'm not bragging, we're not bragging on ourselves to call it a quality pre-apprenticeship program. To be a quality pre-apprenticeship program, you have to actively recruit from underrepresented communities, and the 5 communities that are a focus of quality pre-apprenticeship programs are women, people of color, youth ages 16 to 24, veterans, and people with disabilities. And we have actively recruited from those areas in the 3 years that we've been in operation. You also have to have approved training and curriculum, something that the industry recognizes. And with that, we work through the North American Building Trades Unions, and they're using their multi-craft core curriculum, something recognized nationwide. You have to have strategies for long-term success, and those include our apprenticeship readiness program, which is a 5-week course that provides additional education and training to people. But it's also our agreements with various jointly trusteed apprenticeship programs that are registered through the U.S. Department of Labor. So they meet strict standards of quality for the training that they provide and the jobs that they provide at the end of the training and that at the end of your apprenticeship. So during the apprenticeship, you earn while you learn. At the end of the apprenticeship, you are given a journey person card that allows you to go anywhere in the United States and in many trades also Canada and work in your trade and be recognized as fully qualified. You also have to have access to appropriate support services, and that is something that we work with all of our participants to try to access supports that they need to lower any other barriers that they might have. And in this proposal, we are proposing to specifically work with 2 community partners that will help us in providing those support services. Also have to have meaningful hands-on training, which we do through going to the training facilities of our partners, and they provide both a tour of the facility, but also a project that people do so that they can see what the trade is like. And then it also needs to promote the greater use of registered apprenticeship programs, and we do that through our partnerships with the building trades and a number of registered apprenticeship programs in the area. And finally, there's facilitated entry into registered apprenticeship programs. So we do that through the connections that we provide, our articulation agreements with a number of trades, and our ongoing support in helping people to get into those better jobs. We work with jointly trusteed apprenticeship training programs because they have been shown to do the best job of training people and getting them through the program and having jobs afterwards that provide family supporting wages and benefits. And so with COVID in particular and the economic disparities within the Iowa City area, getting family supporting jobs to people that need them was a focus of our Quality Pre-Apprenticeship program, and partnering with the City of Iowa City we see as a wonderful way for us to work together to provide those opportunities. We leverage the resources that we have that have been devoted to the Quality Pre-Apprenticeship program. There's countless hours that are donated by industry professionals to help in our program, to provide places to train. We provide administrative support, and frankly, I spend more time on this program than we ask for in funding for this project. But we think that this is a great opportunity for us to take a program that's very important to us and that we've been involved with to try to bridge the gap between where people are and where they need to be to get into these high quality jobs, and to work with the City of Iowa City on some in helping the people of the community, and we would urge your support.
Yeah, and I'll just wrap up with a few other things because we've got people who can speak much more personally about what it's like to be in our programs here today. But just wanted to say that, in addition to the things that Paul described, I'm really excited about the idea of a consistent 4-year predictable annual program, because so far we've been able to provide the program only as grant funding pops up here or there. And so knowing that year-round we can recruit for a fall course that will happen each year for 4 years, year-round we can do placement with all the graduates as they're available to work, really means everything. And not only that, beyond the individual placements, the idea that over the course of the 4 years, we can really strengthen relationships between nonprofit community leaders and registered apprenticeship coordinators, union leaders, and industry leaders means that, at one point we can step back and those relationships exist. They don't have to build those relationships through us. But we've also got really fantastic infrastructure. This is no longer sort of an experimental program. It's a tested program that we've continued to strengthen. There's a tool library that we maintain that we make available. There are computers to provide national career readiness exams where people need them, when they need them. I could go on and on. I convene a Iowa Women in Trades peer networking programs that meets monthly so that women can support each other who may be the only person on the job site like them and exchange ideas. So we're really excited to be able to devote and focus a significant time in this program to the Iowa City community. That's also my home and my kids' home, and partner with the schools and the community groups in this effort. So we look forward to any questions that you may have.
Any questions? Thank you. All right. We're going to open this up to the public. If there's anyone that want to talk on this topic, please come up to the mic. There is a sign-in. We ask that you give your name and the city you're from, and no one is online at this point. Welcome.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I'm Bill Gerhardt. I live here in Iowa City. For 14 years, I was president of the Iowa State Building Construction Trades Council. Now I work solely for the local I came out of, the Laborers Union. I want to say how important this program the Labor Center has put together is for the sustainability of the building trades. 14 years ago, apprenticeship was our best kept secret. Our goal is to get that out in front of people. Then our other goal was to diversify the building trades, and this program helps us do that. The Quality Pre-Apprentice program uses our curriculum. It's called the MC3, the Multi-Craft Core Curriculum, which means that no matter what trade you go into of the 15 different trades, there's sort of a common denominator, what you need to know, and that curriculum help provides it. So I'm really pleased that the city of Iowa City is supporting this, and it's important. I'm not sure everyone understands the amount of work that's going to be coming to the area. We've sat through the meetings with the university on their 10-year plan. We know the Infrastructure Act is going to pour tons of money into transportation and other areas. And also with the Inflation Reduction Act, that's green energy projects are going to take off. So we're going to be needing people. And this program is a great conduit for us. So thanks to the City Council and the City of Iowa City for your support.
Thank you. Anyone else like to address this topic? Come on forth. Welcome.
Hey, Brandon Ross. I have a question for anybody who would answer. Considering low pay and at the rate that landlords parasitically take our capital from our working hours, does your center actually provide information about unionizing?
And I'm assuming you just wanted to make that statement.
No, I do want to have the person answer if they can. I'm interested in knowing whether unionizing in labor. My father was a labor construction union person, and I'm just wondering how that affects what you do, or if it's included. Yeah, that's all.
Yep, and all comments from here on out is directed towards the council. But thank you. Welcome. And if you're thinking about speaking, you can get in the line. And there's also some sign-in tabs at the back of the room. It's stickers, so you'll be able to place it there. Welcome.
Welcome, welcome. My name is Jasper Washington. I'm from Iowa City, and I'd just like to advocate for this program because I took it 2 years ago, and it really helped out. Like, I went into the program not really sure. I had narrowed it down to 2. And it definitely let me know that I wanted to be a carpenter, not an electrician. It really helped out with that. When I took the class, it was like the height of COVID, so there wasn't too much work. But recently, I got signed on. I'm a carpenter now. I just left my second day of class today. And I would say that Robin was a huge help in that. And I feel like just that outlet and being able to just reach out to her and her do the rest. And then just 2 days later, I'm signed up for the carpentry apprenticeship. So I really appreciated that. And then as I heard her talking about how she wanted to unite the nonprofits and maybe I could be an advocate for that as well. I'm definitely excited about that. Hopefully that's something I can do in the future. But yeah, I definitely suggest this program. It really helped me out a lot. And so I would say yes across the board, hopefully.
Thank you. Welcome. And please state your name and the city you're from.
Yep. My name is Cassandra Elton. I live here in Iowa City. And I just wanted to express my gratitude for the Quality Pre-Apprenticeship Program. Working in the construction trades has been something that has interested me since I was a child. And I just had no idea how to access that potential career. And so when I saw the applications available for this program, I jumped on it, and I was very impressed with the way that the program is structured to teach both hard and soft skills to future applicants into apprenticeship programs. I loved that we got to learn about so many different trades, that it wasn't focused on one specific area, and it was really left open to us to learn more about different things and connect us with those in those trades that can teach us those things. One of the things we talked about in class was that the trades, like a lot of careers, you kind of have to know somebody in order to learn what that process looks like to enter those trades. And so now Robin and Paul are the people that we know, and then they can introduce us to other people to help us reach those goals. Coming from a background in nonprofits myself, I completely understand how important predictable funding is to the success of a program. And like Robin said, being able to know that you have funding for 4 years for a program like this so that you can be working year-round to really find the people that would benefit most from this will just make this program even more successful than it already is. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi,
My name is Royce Peterson. I reside in Coralville, but my office for the Carpenters Local Union 1260 is here in Iowa City. I'm a business representative there, have been for 15 years. I'm also the chairman for our Five Rivers Carpenters Joint Apprenticeship Training Center, and we've worked closely with the Labor Center since the inception of this to get it going. It has served us very well since it started, not only with our partnerships with community organizations, but helping us get people into the trades. Bill spoke earlier about our need for skilled tradespeople. Currently, we have 3 locals in eastern Iowa that have about somewhere around over 800 members, and we have 11 people on the bench. So that just goes to show the need for skilled trade people. We have had a few people come through this program that we've already placed, and I have gotten nothing but accolades from our contractors, from the people we've placed, because they're coming in with OSHA training, CPR training. If they need language, if they have language barriers and they need, some skills in learning construction language as a second language, in English, they provide that as well. So, I think this is going to do nothing but help us to also service the contractors and the developers in the area to build infrastructure that serves this community. So thank you guys for your consideration in this, and very nice talking to you guys tonight and allowing me to speak to you. So thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Put this on here?
Yes, please. Welcome.
Good evening. How you guys doing? My name is Greg Hearns. I'm from Iowa City. I'm the president of Iowa City Federation of Labor, which is the Central Labor Council for this area. Also a retired Teamster. I'm just here to say that as president of City Fed, we totally are backing this. This is all about opportunity. You've heard this said many times. This is about opportunity. When I was in school many years ago, we were introduced to things like auto shop, wood shop, metal shop, home economics. These days, kids are being sold the option of you go to college, or you're probably going to end up working in fast food or for some temp agency, and that's not acceptable. This program is going to give people an opportunity to be introduced to something that they may have not thought about, may have not ever dreamed about, and it could put them in a position to, move up in the community. And that's what we're all about, trying to bring people up. It's not about, being greedy or anything like that. It's just trying to bring people up, trying to help people be better. This program is going to provide you with some of the best workers you'll ever have, some of the safest workers you'll ever have, and that's a fact. And like I said, I don't think that temp agencies should be the leading labor organizers in our city. So, again, thanks for the consideration on this, and thanks for listening.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hello. Hi. Good evening. I'm Sean Williams. I'm from Iowa City. I've been here 20 years.
Will you bring the mic closer, please?
I'm Sean Williams. I've been here in Iowa City 20 years. I have 8 kids and 15 grandkids. I took this program because I wanted my son to do something different with his life, and so he was interested in it. So I told him that I'll go with him because I wanted to always try something different anyway. So me and my son graduated from this program, and we really appreciate it because after he finished the program, he entered the carpentry program. And so I have an interview tomorrow, so I'm trying to see what that's going to be like because I'm a teacher at City High. So this program was very educated, and I just want to let women know that they can participate in this program too. It's not just for men. So I appreciate y'all, and I thank y'all for the program and supporting it.
Thank you. Welcome.
Okay, my name is Ezine. I live in Iowa City. We just graduated from the pre-apprenticeship program November 19th, and I must confess the program is a helpful one. We got to learn about different trades, and we visited different trade companies. It was really a helpful one because there are some trades we don't know about, but with the help of this pre-apprenticeship program, we get to know a lot about them. So I must say the trade is a helpful one, and I would appreciate if the contract is continued. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to address this topic? Seeing no one. Council discussion.
Hello, Mayor. As Pauline, I'd like to start. I'd like to first of all thank Robin and Paul for your presentation. It was very helpful in understanding the actual program. And also thank you to those students who were brave enough to stand up and speak. That really helps too, to know that personal aspect of it. I've been familiar with the Labor Center for many years, probably at least 40 now, and have heard great things about all the programs that they have ever presented. As Robin said, they recently celebrated 70 years of being in existence, which is an amazing milestone. I see this as a win-win for everyone involved, especially the individuals who will have the opportunity to enter an apprenticeship program that will help them to build a strong life and future for themselves. My late husband went through an apprenticeship program in the building trades and went on to be a journeyman. So I have a soft spot in my heart for anyone who follows that path. I will very happily be voting in favor of funding for this program.
So I will speak as someone who also has skin in this game. My daughter is finishing up her first year as a carpenter's apprentice with the Carpenters Union. It is a life-changing program that is giving her skills that she will be able to use her entire life wherever she goes. The other thing that's really tremendous about it is not only does it teach people skills and give them a true living wage, but it will also allow us as a community to staff a lot of these big projects from within our community without having to bring in people from other states. These are really good jobs that will be in this community, and as we funnel people through these programs, we will have more qualified carpenters, pipe fitters, electricians, and so forth to be able to work on those job sites.
I'll just thank you all for the presentation and for having it be so well-rounded, both the sort of technical aspects of what the program can be and has been, as well as those of you who have participated and can speak to your personal experiences. So I'm very much in favor of this and just want to highlight the family supporting jobs that Paul kept saying, and the fact that, Greg, you said bring people up, right? That's what we want to do. And, targeting these particular groups of people who historically have not had as many of those opportunities is phenomenal. And also, as Jasper, you said, the opportunities for collaborating among nonprofits, right? And just seeing that kind of just cohesion and synergy among all of those opportunities and, kind of coming out of this program that will have some, hopefully, staying power, right? That's great. So thank you. Good.
I love any program that's a win, 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 win all the way around. And so it's great to have this before us. Since we first heard the proposal or early mentions of this proposal, I've been looking forward to the day when it finally got to this point where we could vote on it. And so I'm excited to be here, and thank you for the presentation and for all those who spoke tonight.
Yes, thanks for the really comprehensive presentation on the program and, highlighting some of the comments that you've made on the sustainability of building our local trades, diversifying at the same time the building trades, forming the partnerships among the various entities involved, and family supporting jobs. I think that's a really nice way of putting it. And then I would add that this is work with dignity. We have so many, what seem like just a diminishing opportunity for being able to work with dignity. And I think this is a path to that, and it's just critically important to our community to have those types of jobs. So thank you.
I was just going to, I heartily agree with all the comments that have been made, and I am thrilled to support this project. But one of the things that struck me and that Robin has talked about, and Jasper as well, about sort of the way in which connections and relationships are forged and strengthened, right? So that at some point there can be direct relationships, but it becomes this network, and so I keep hitting that, sorry, a web that continues to get strengthened. And in another context, in a meeting, we were talking about the success of businesses. About so much of it has to do with relationships, not about. Yes, you have to have a good business plan, but it's also about the relationships that are built and the trust and the, and the way in which you can help one another. Right? Relationships beget success, and this is also cooked into this plan over time. And so what you were talking about, the sustainability of it, this is just a fantastic program, and there's so many other components of it that are coming out in the comments that the students have brought up, and thank you for talking to us about the program. And then from those who are saying, we're the pipeline, we can't get enough of them. Come on, it's just, this is great, and thank you so much for putting so much effort into making this and standing it up, and not saying, this isn't a pilot anymore. Let's keep this going so that it's right here, it's homegrown in the community, and it can just continue to be strengthened. Thank you.
Well, happy birthday to the UI Labor Center. 70 years, that's a long time. And so really appreciated everyone that came forth. Of course, the technical part that Councilor Burgess talked about. Really appreciated hearing that. But more so, I really appreciated seeing individuals come and talk about the program and their personal experience. And what I heard and what I saw was diversity. What I heard and what I saw was exposure to different trades and things that they had never thought about. Also, what I heard very clearly is that opportunity, as well as that financial pathway to some of the things that we're talking about on a daily basis here at the city, affordable housing. Well, if we can really, have opportunities for people to get a job that can pay a living wage, then some of those concerns diminish with the stuff that we do here. Accessibility, it seemed like it's very accessible. I know that the word still needs to get out and needs to be marketed to a lot of individuals should this pass. And also, something that I heard that I was excited about was, this is something for 4 years, and I'm hopeful that this will be something that is self-sustained or transferred, in the future, that it'll just be in the fabric of the community, that this will not, just be something that will happen. When we talk about the ARPA funds, one of the things that the federal government wanted was to make sure that we built resilient communities. And this is the one perfect example of using funds to make sure that people and individuals are more resilient, because we don't know what the future is going to hold for us as a nation and as a community. So I will support this happily. All right. So I think we are ready for roll call.
Burgess?
Yes.
Harmson?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Weiner?
Yes.
Alter?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Item number 13, adoption of City Council fiscal year 2023 through fiscal year 2028 strategic plan. This is a resolution adopting Iowa City Council strategic plan fiscal years 2023 through 2028. Could I get a motion to approve, please?
So moved, Burgess.
Second, Alter.
All right, and we'll get comments from our city manager, Jeff Ruin.
Well, I'm going to jump right in and skip to page 643, which is in the weeds of your strategic plan. It says to partner with stakeholders, provide meaningful career development opportunities, pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeship programs. So we're well on our way with the strategic plan. So the actual item starts on page 624 of your packet if you're following along. This has been a more involved process than we have gone through with strategic plans in the past. I think council made a very wise and bold decision to move from a 2-year strategic plan to a 5-year. I think it allowed you to think a little bit more broadly. It allowed you to establish some long-term visions that I think will be very helpful in guiding future decisions at this table and within the staff realm too. But what's before you is a new look strategic plan that builds on the foundation of your previous strategic plans. I'm not going to go through it in detail, but as a reminder, we did identify values, and those are partnerships and engagement, climate action, and racial equity, social justice, and human rights. I think there's some great narratives along with those values that will guide our day-to-day operations going forward. You also identified 4 impact areas and related strategies that you really wanted to have some influence on in the next 5 years. Those are neighborhood and housing, mobility, the economy, and safety and well-being. So within each of those categories, we have strategies and specific action steps to help us achieve the vision that you've set. And this plan also identifies the resources that are needed to carry those out. Not only the resources to carry out specific action items, but the resources needed to continue to invest in the core services that enable us to look at those value add items as a city. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you have about the strategic plan, but this resolution would formally adopt that and allow us to move forward on that implementation piece, which I mentioned is well underway.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions for Jeff? All right. Anyone from the public like to address this topic? Seeing no one, council discussion.
I think this was such a interesting way to start a first year on the council, is going through this comprehensive strategic planning process. So I feel like it was such a wonderful crash course in so many things beyond just the day-to-day. So it was really great. I'd like to thank all of my fellow members of the council and city staff, and of course our facilitators for the many hours of work and discussions and planning that we put into this. It was actually, I felt, a very rewarding process, something that I think is going to continue to yield fruit for us for years. And it is a flexible document, so this is not written in stone. As things change in our city, we are able to adapt, but we're able to do it with some sort of course in mind at the outset. So just wanted to express my gratitude for all of those who were involved in this process. It was really rewarding to be on the inside of it.
I'm actually really grateful that it ended up being, I think the process maybe took a little longer than we first had anticipated, but I think all of the depth of that was really helpful. And then timing-wise, it ended up giving us the opportunity to kind of see the Better Together 2030 vision come out and the Inclusive Economic Development Plan, and of course the ECOG Envision East Central Iowa Plan. And I think this just gives us the scaffolding or this, the structure to really know if we're on target with so many of our actions. And I am very excited as we have difficult conversations that are ahead, particularly as we look at, the budget challenges with changes in property tax legislation that we're still feeling the effects of, and the headwinds, as it says in the plan, that we have ahead. I just feel like this is such a good guiding document and North Star where we can just really concretely check ourselves. Okay, we bought into this process. We think this is a good plan. Are we on track or not? And to have that regular check-ins and reporting, it's just really exciting. So I'm really proud of us and grateful for doing it.
This is an enormous amount of work, and it's one thing to sort of see a lot of sticky notes on glass walls, and then to have it emerge finally as this, with these, a vision, a roadmap, the how we're going to do it, with dates, that will very much help guide our discussions, so that we don't have to feel like we have to grasp at every great idea. We have something that can help us along the way, and we can kind of compare and think about great ideas as they emerge, and how does that fit in with what we have collectively decided are our values and how we want to enact them in the city over the next 5-7 years, what have you. So I think it's, as Laura said, it's a fantastic kind of guide for us. It's not written in stone, but it is so embedded in some really deep conversations, and just, good Lord, the amount of effort that this represents is tremendous, and I want to thank everybody that was involved. But this seems to me such a great document for us to be able to refer to and make it very well thumbed over the next 5 years, so that we can keep seeing where we're at, and that it can work as a North Star. As you said, Laura, it's a perfect description. It's going to keep us honest, right, and focused. So this is awesome.
Yes, it was, having been through several of these, this was by far the most comprehensive strategic plan that has been developed since I've been on the council. We are facing just in some respects, kind of an overwhelming set of challenges, all of which are, as I learned through Black Lives Matter and COVID, are interrelated and systemic. So it really presents an extraordinary challenge to try to capture that array of issues that we're facing in a strategic plan, and to give it any kind of manageable time frame. So we shall see. I appreciate its ambition. I think we've all put our good faith into coming up with a plan that we're proud of, and that I hope the community, not too many here at this point, and at least in person. I don't know how many are watching or listening in, but I would encourage the public to read the document. One of the insights I've been having since we've developed this is the importance of trying to apply ecological principles to a strategic plan, and one of those principles would be feedback. And so feedback is critical in terms of how we think about this document, how we go about its implementation. But I think the framework is sound. Again, I'm personally trying to understand it through the window or lens of ecology, because I think we can arguably say that nature presents us with a model of what sustainability and resiliency truly is. And so by adopting those principles and making sure that our actions in the strategic plan are consistent with those principles, I think we'll advance the program successfully as we move forward. So thanks to all for the effort.
I'd say briefly, it was a really rigorous process, but it really required a lot of everyone. One of the things I really appreciated was framing it with this environmental scan, which I don't think we've done before to that sense, so that we can really take a look at all the different factors that are going to be putting pressure on, affecting this as council and the city move through it, and mostly things over which council has very little impact. So I think it's very useful to have that in the frame, so that you can see as you go forward what impact the workforce had, what impact racial income equality had, what impact the legislature has, what is done with funding, and it's really key to acknowledge that this is not an island, that all these other factors apply.
Councilor Taylor?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, I echo what all my fellow counselors have said, and also especially what Councillor Thomas said, because I, like him, have been in on this type of planning for the last 7 years now, and this certainly was the most rigorous and strenuous episode of planning that we've been through. But it forced me to take a real serious look at what my vision for the community is for over the next 4 or 5 years. So I think it was very helpful that way. And I think our facilitator was excellent in drawing that out of people to say, well, what is it that you really want? What do you think we can and should accomplish? So, yeah, I'm pretty proud of the document, and we'll just see where it goes over the next few years.
So when I heard about all the Post-it notes, I had that vision of us, putting them on both sides of the wall where we were, and there were a lot of ideas, lots of ideas. And then when we got the document where it combined not only the council thoughts but also the staff thoughts. And again, it was a lot of things that were there, and we know that the community was at the heart of all of these. And so what I want to do is really say thanks to ECOG, Karen, and all of the team there for making it happen, for really coming alongside council and the Iowa City community to create this document. I want to say thanks to our staff, because I know that this was not an easy undertaking for them to feel comfortable, I think, to really share some of the needs that they see for this community. And even for our fellow counselors, thanks to each of you, because I know that this was not an easy one, right? We had homework that we had to prove that we did, right? And it was a great exercise. But I think at the end of the day, what I've heard is that this was different. This was an opportunity for us all to maybe step back and reset what those priorities were. We were used to coming in on a yearly basis, and maybe there was a little pressure to get it done within a certain amount of time, but we took our time and stepped back and really dove into this, and I really appreciate all the work that's gone into it. Ultimately, I think this is it's really, when I look at the City of Iowa City strategy map and the components that are there, it talks about the values and the impact and the resources that we have. I think this is very critical as we move through this next phase, that we really do pay attention to the elements that are there, because it will help guide some of those priorities that our city want and deserve. And so ultimately, thanks to the City of Iowa City community for ensuring that this is really the values that we hold and that we work towards as a community. So with that, we will take roll call.
Harmson?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Weiner?
Yes.
Alter?
Yes.
Burgess?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Item number 14 is City of Iowa City 2023 State Legislative Priorities. This is a resolution establishing the City of Iowa City's 2023 State Legislative Priorities. And could I get a motion to approve, please?
So moved. Alter.
Second, Harmson.
Second.
All right, moved by Harmson and moved by Alter, seconded by Harmson. You were a little slow there. I'm sure it was the delay. All right. We're going to welcome our Deputy City Manager, Redmond Jones.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. I'd like to take a couple moments to go over our legislative priorities, but before that, I'd like to share a real quick little story about myself. So I had the opportunity to be a part of a team that took a neighborhood idea and followed it through to actually turn it into a state law here in Iowa. It took 2 years to do that, and I was told that was like warp speed. I can tell you from the neighbors and the constituent standpoint, it took forever. So I share that story with you just to let you, but also the public know that a lot of these priorities that I will be covering briefly is ideas and priorities from previous years, but it takes time and you have to stick with it. I think that is the important piece to actually trying to get things actually passed through the legislature. So bear with me if these sound familiar because they are, and for our new council, I know that you have went through these, but our priorities are really focused in 6 major categories. And I'll take those categories and then talk about some of the brief points in each one of those categories. So to start off, demonstrated leadership in climate action. So we're going to continue these priorities. We'll continue to encourage the state to adopt the 2021 International Energy and Conservation Code and provide the cities the ability to make local amendments. The city also encourages the state to initiate a statewide climate action plan and invest directly in environmental and ecological efforts that will support all Iowans. Our priorities also will encourage legislation that will allow investor-owned utilities the ability to implement community solar projects. This will allow for rate users to actually get credits to use towards their utility bills. This is an item that has been a new one added to a previous category. Moving on to the next one, advance social justice and racial equity and human rights. In that area, we want to continue to push the governor and the legislature to take those governor's focus committee recommendations for criminal justice reforms. We also encourage legislation to provide the adequate funding for crisis intervention and mental health care. Next category is to update our public facilities and infrastructure financing laws. This is something that we've been working on, and I think we're getting some traction on this year. We expect to have it, at least we have some folks that's willing to sponsor it in legislation, which is the first time. And essentially, this is going to update 30-year-old municipal bonding laws. And as you know, with the recent events of supply chain issues and inflation issues, not to mention the normal cost of adjustment that comes with construction costs go up every year, on average years 4 to 7, and it's even been higher than that. 4 to 7% has even been higher than that. So it's time for that to happen. And now with the environment of all these other issues, I think we might actually be able to make some inroads in that area. Also, we want to continue support with DNR and the REAP funding that's helped us in many of our parks and rec projects, and so we want to continue supporting that. Next area is, again, we've been hearing this theme a lot tonight, foster healthy neighborhoods and affordable housing throughout the city of Iowa City. We want to continue to press for protecting home rule. We also support the efforts of our USG and want to support a bill that was introduced last session that protects tenants against unfair withholdings and requiring landlords to use clear documented checklists at the start and ending of lease agreements. We also support legislation in protecting the rights of manufactured home housing residents and promote equitable access to high-speed internet, broadband, and those type of infrastructure needs. Moving on to the next major area is promote an inclusive and resilient economy throughout the city of Iowa City. In this area, we want to advocate for additional education funding for including early childhood education and care. We also support continued use of federal funding to support residents and businesses in recovery from COVID-19. Our last area is strengthening community engagement and intergovernmental relations. Iowa City has had a history and a longstanding working relationship with Iowa League of Cities and their agenda, and also the Metro Coalition, and we continue to work in those efforts. So if you have any other questions, want to delve in deeper in any of those, I'll be happy to try to answer those questions.
It's sort of a question / comment. One of the things that I noticed under the, it was an early category concerning social justice, and I noted that it was a continued priority to encourage the state to review sort of its oversight or its regulations and stipulations for community police review boards. And the language that I noted was in order to ensure that individual boards have sufficient oversight powers. So can you just expand on that a little bit? I think I understand what that means, but can you?
Well, I think there's some limits to what the police review boards can do, right? And a lot of that has to do with what the state law allows. So I think there's been a push to actually have some boards be able to have a little bit more control over being able to get in a little deeper into what is the ultimate outcomes to some of their decisions, because a lot of times there are personnel type of issues and they don't really see what happens to the end of those. So they like to see maybe a little more transparency in those issues, in those areas, and get a little bit more into the outcomes outside of just looking at what actually happened to got them to that decision. So they're constantly looking at ways. I actually had been involved in some research in this area early on in my career, and those boards are always looking at more ways to get more involved. But there's also a Bill of Rights for police officers, so you have to weigh all those issues, and I think they're finding that perfect balance is always a concern back and forth when looking at those kind of things.
Is it fair to say right now that the state, at any rate, is it's not exactly at a perfect balance, because the state is pretty much saying you can look at this, but in terms of being able to sort of see what happens, that's not in the purview, and so there's a certain amount of interest to be able to say, can we put a little more teeth into, in a certain sense, in the same way of home rule? I mean, I don't want to get in the weeds, but I'm kind of trying to understand it, just
full
to say
disclosure,
that.
I haven't researched the full recommendations but from what I've been able to see, they're just constantly pushing to get more authority in those areas. So, and I'm sure delving into, they'll be more specific as what they would like to see, but it's pretty fair that most of the review boards want to have a little bit more
control over. Okay, thank you.
If I could add on to that real quick, just as a reminder, Iowa City was the only community with a community police review board for a couple of decades. And then after 2020, you saw interest from a number of other cities in creating review boards. In cities, I think Cedar Rapids, Coralville even went through this. A number of them were considering how to move forward. And what this priority speaks to is now that there is more statewide interest in creating these boards, the state should really take a look and have some discussions about the authority. We can learn from other communities that are exploring this here in Iowa, but we can also learn from communities across the country. But historically, when we were that only community with the CPRB, there were calls almost annually for additional legislative power, or not legislative power, oversight for that CPRB. So we just recognize that our community has made that call several times. There is a state restriction there, and we're not suggesting specific legislation other than the state should probably take a look and do a comprehensive study.
Yeah, and to be clear, that was kind of, you put it way better than I did, but that was kind of my question, was just that this is something where the state has, to be really blunt about it, has more authority and has hamstrung abilities of individual boards to perhaps have a little bit more control. And this is just something that we want to look into, but it's not us that's doing it, in other words. This is for us to have as a state-led priority.
Yeah, I think you saw it was part of your work session today. It seems like every couple of years at least we're tweaking our CPRB ordinance here, and we're trying to do the best that we can. That balance that Redmond talked about is still there. The officers have rights; they should have rights, and it's just something that hasn't been analyzed on the state level because there was an interest outside of Iowa City for so long. It's a good time, in my view, for a state-wide entity to look at it through a broader lens.
If I would add too, you may recall that the CPRB actually, I think it was as part of the Black Lives Movement, Matter movement, came forth with a number of recommendations to City Council in kind of toward the same thing, to try to get a little more oversight, a little more power, a little more review. And our office had to issue a memo and basically said, we can do this, we can try this, can't do this, can't do this, can't do this, can't do that, because of state law, either, mostly the Peace Officer Bill of Rights in Chapter 80F.
All right. No further questions. Anyone from the public like to address this topic? Seeing no one, council discussion?
Well, you've got your work cut out for you, Janice.
Just one person.
Yes, I think this will be,
all on you.
thank you to the staff and everybody. And I know that we'll all be diligent watching what's going on in Des Moines, because it really does have such profound effects on what we can do for our community and the quality of life in our community. So important stuff, and definitely we'll be keeping a close eye.
I would say that in addition to what you have on the wish list here, and I'll let you know that my number one ask is for local government as a committee. They haven't made assignments yet. We have to keep a really close eye on what they want to do with property taxes, because that's the future of every city, municipality, county in this, and school district in this state right now.
Roll call, please.
Taylor?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Weiner?
Yes.
Alter?
Yes.
Burgess?
Yes.
Harmson?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Item number 15 is announcements of vacancies previous. Applicants must reside in Iowa City and be 18 years of age unless specific qualifications are stated. Historic Preservation Commission, East College Street, one vacancy to fill an unexpired term. Historic Preservation Commission, Woodlawn Avenue, one vacancy to fill an unexpired term. Housing and Community Development Commission, one vacancy to fill an unexpired term. Library Board of Trustees, one vacancy to fill an unexpired term. Senior Center Commission, one vacancy to fill an unexpired term. Applications must be received by 5 p.m. Tuesday, January 3rd. Airport Zoning Board of Adjustment, one vacancy to fill a 5-year term. Airport Zoning Commission, Iowa City Representative, one vacancy to fill a 6-year term. Board of Appeals, one vacancy for a licensed plumber to fill a 5-year term. Board of Appeals, HBA representative or qualified by experience or training, one vacancy to fill a 5-year term. Historic Preservation Commission, Jefferson Street, one vacancy to fill a 3-year term. Senior Center Commission, 2 vacancies to fill a 3-year term. And vacancies will remain open until filled. We are at City Council members' information and updates.
So I'm going to take the opportunity to speak a little bit now to thank you all. It's a little bit of an odd moment, but it's been a huge honor to serve, and I see our job as really being that of public servants. We serve you, any of you who are still watching. To any of you and all of you who listen to meetings and engage, thank you. We need community engagement. This is the level of government that has the most direct effect on your lives. And even though we don't respond during public comment, we really do listen. We may not always agree, but you often bring salient points to us. You help educate us and can shift how we view issues. To all my colleagues on council, both current and past, I could not have asked for better, more committed people with whom to work. We test each other. We come at things from different angles and we bring different experiences, and I view this diversity of viewpoints as a strength. But I'm convinced that we are all passionate about our desire to make Iowa City the most welcoming, vibrant, diverse, thriving, walkable, sustainable community that we possibly can. To city staff, you care about this community. You work really hard, often with no recognition. And one of the things for which I'll always be grateful is the opportunity to learn from you and work with you. It's like so much goes into the working of a city and making city services run that you learn from once you have a view behind the scenes. It's remarkable. You make it work. You've all been through a lot these last few years, and you continue to give it your all. I think particularly it's like of Kelly and like moving us around, moving us to the senior center. He's like, there's always a ton of learning Zoom from the beginning. Everyone who serves on a city commission or board, who takes the time to apply for them, who serves on all these different organizations, we're lucky to have you as committed citizens. And also to colleagues in other levels of local government, we've served together on boards, worked together for the good of the citizens of this county, and I'll still be serving with you when I'm in Des Moines. It definitely was an unexpected few years. We spent the majority of it on Zoom or masked. I really appreciated the opportunity to work with colleagues to try and keep us as informed, as safe as possible during the pandemic, pushing out information. If you remember the earlier days, pushing out information, pushing out videos in multiple languages. I was actually your imperfect French-speaking voice. We worked with different levels of government, both behind the scenes. We worked with student government, with USG, with university, with county health, and it was all to try and keep people well. We also, as you referenced, Mayor, learned and are continuing to grow and learn and struggle from the summer of social justice and Black Lives Matter. And our business community has made a lot of progress. I mean, I think that COVID in some ways really catalyzed people at all different levels to work together. We look at Better Together 2030. That wouldn't have, and what's happening also with ICAD and the Iowa City Business Council, I don't think any of that would be happening ironically, had the pandemic not happened. And then we have a new SMID, and we have all this vibrant activity in the city. We also have an abundance of amazing committed nonprofits here in Johnson County. We've talked about them some this evening. They serve our citizens in so many ways in concert with local government. They've shown themselves to be resilient and nimble during the pandemic, but I have to say, to me, the foundational purpose of government is to provide the resources so that we can all succeed and so that all citizens have the chance to thrive. And I see the state as pushing more and more onto the shoulders of local government and nonprofits while limiting the resources available to both. That's not how it should work. I would love to see the state supporting Iowans rather than pushing unfunded and defunded mandates down to the local level. We're really fortunate to live in a community that supports these services and goals. Not everyone has that ability. So finally, we've endeavored to craft a strategic plan that really follows and is based on inclusive values. And we're doing that at a time when we're witnessing actions around this country and in this state that are working against inclusivity and diversity. When people, whether in a position of power, groups or individuals, punch down on already vulnerable communities or propagate hate, they hurt us all. And what endangers one group, as we've discussed, Mayor, really won't end there. We just saw it in Colorado Springs at Club Q. We saw it in Buffalo, New York, the supermarket, in Pittsburgh at the Tree of Life Synagogue. We saw it on January 6th in Charlottesville. Rights, I sort of base my views on the fact that rights don't get sliced and diced and reduced like pie. They're not limited. They expand, they grow, they uplift, and they enrich us all. So thank you all. You can't get rid of me. I look forward to, my Senate district is approximately the same as my city council district, so I look forward to continuing to represent you and work with you all just in a different capacity. It's been a real honor. Thank you.
Well, on behalf of the council, we absolutely do certainly appreciate all of your contributions. And as it was mentioned earlier, you will be missed. And we look forward to continuing to work with you as a city body in your new role. Yep. All right. Any other updates by council?
I do have one. It's just a reminder to people that the survey for the senior center is open, and if you go to icgov.org and then in the search box click in senior center, it'll take you to the online survey. But then there are also a couple of input sessions as well. One of them is tomorrow at Mercer between 5 and 6:30. And then there are 2 Zoom sessions, one on Friday, December 9th, and one on Sunday, December 11th. And the information specific to those and how you get the links is actually through that icgov.org Senior Center page. And I just mention it because we are at kind of ground zero here. We have had Latasha Deloach came earlier in the year to sort of say, here's what's needed, here are options, here's, what are the desires, here's what we know right now, but we need more input, and this is what this is. And so I just heartily encourage everyone to go fill out the survey. It won't take a lot of time, but it really is a way for your voice. We've had a lot of discussion about feedback and input, and this is going to be a way for us to be able to sort of co-create what the future is going to look like for the senior center. And so anyway, go to our website and take the survey or sign up and give some input in person or on Zoom.
All right, we're going to move on to item 17, which is reports on items from city staff. City manager's office.
Nothing tonight.
City attorney.
Nothing for me, thank you.
Our city clerk.
No, thanks.
Then we are on to item number 18. And your last meeting here on City Council for the City of Iowa City. So could I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Weiner, seconded by Burgess. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned.